Welcome to ICNS 2025, the 25th edition of the Integrated Communication, Navigation and Surveillance Conference. ICNS is not only the premier global event for CNS matters, but is also the event that has been helping to push actually the shift from isolated communication, navigation and surveillance functions to CNS services. For those that don't know me, I'm Nikos Fistas. I work for EUROCONTROL, and I'm the 2025 General Conference Chair. And unfortunately, my co-chair, Brent Phillips from the FAA, is not able to be here with us today. I want to thank all of you that you're here in the full Europa room, but also want to thank all of those that are actually watching us through the EUROCONTROL live streams channels. Before proceeding with our packed program for today, I want us to see actually the security videos to have a safe stay in the EUROCONTROL premises. So we really have a very packed program for the 3 days, so I will not spend more time. And without further ado, I want to welcome Raul Medina, the EUROCONTROL Director General, that will provide the welcome remarks from one of the host organizations. Raul.
Thank you very much, and thank you so much, Nikos. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to EUROCONTROL. I'm truly delighted to welcome you to this new edition of the Integrated Communication, Navigation and Surveillance Conference, commonly known as ICNS. This year's event is particularly special for two reasons. First, it marks the first time that the event is being held outside the US. And second, it's a special date, as it is the 25th anniversary of this meeting. Hosting this prestigious conference in Europe for the very first time, right here at the EUROCONTROL's headquarters, at our premises, together with our partners, the SESAR Joint Undertaking, the SESAR SDM as well, is a significant milestone. This conference brings together policymakers, researchers, industry leaders, and other relevant stakeholders to shape the future of aviation CNS. And when it comes to CNS, and this is something that I've been discussing a lot with the EUROCONTROL team working on this portfolio, with Pedrak, Paul, with Veronica as well. Collaboration is essential, both at technical operational level, indeed, but also at institutional level. And this is very well reflected in your agenda for the next 3 days, with many technical papers being presented and a few important keynotes from EASA's Executive Director, Florian Guillermet, right after my talk. Also from European Commission, Flor Díaz Pulido, and also from ICAO's Pascal Luciani. At EUROCONTROL, our mission is to support European aviation ecosystem by applying our technical expertise and civil-military collaboration we have in our DNA. Dealing with the CNS infrastructure and the radio spectrum it relies on is part of our portfolio because it is critical to aviation operations. At the start of 2024, we launched one of the most important activities in this regard. At the request of the Commission, at the request of the European Commission, EUROCONTROL assumed a new role as Europe's CNS program manager with the objective to accelerate and harmonize the CNS evolution across Europe. The Commission was quite clear on this. We had to do it in an inclusive, constructive, and collaborative way. And frankly speaking, I think we did it. The CNS program manager is implementing a holistic strategy addressing both optimization and future evolution of the CNS domain in Europe. And we are doing it together. Our people, together with our member states, and in full collaboration with our institutional partners, industry and staff associations, are working together to build a CNS evolution plan that will be a common reference for everyone in Europe when it comes to CNS evolution. This is another example where engagement and collaboration between all relevant players is crucial for the successful delivery of this ambitious program. To this end, this conference provides an ideal platform for fostering cooperation, partnerships, and discussions about the topics that are important for the future of CNS. I encourage you all to take a full advantage of the knowledge sharing opportunities over the next 3 days. Connect with as many colleagues as you can and enjoy your time in sunny Brussels. I wish you a fruitful and inspiring conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Raul, for this welcome. I think there is one word actually that I would like to stress, the collaboration. And I think this is really important that we need to keep in mind. And I think the ICNS conference is one of the events that has really been focusing on the collaboration and trying to pushing the global harmonization. So thank you for that. What I would like now is to continue with a very special speaker. So it is Florian Guillermet, the Executive Director of EASA. And Florian actually will be addressing and exploring the connectivity needs of tomorrow's aviation and how we can build a safe and resilient CNS infrastructure. So Florian.
Thank you, Nikos, and good morning to all, dear Director General, dear Raul, dear colleagues from EUROCONTROL, dear colleagues from the FAA. It's a pleasure to be with you today. Many thanks for this opportunity to talk about this important topic, even though I must say, and I have to manage expectations, I'm not able to talk about CNS for 30 minutes in a row. So I will do a kind of landscape brushing, addressing a couple of challenges that we face and what we do from an EASA perspective. And then I propose to Nikos that maybe we open the floor for some Q&A. So this is how we will run the session. What I wanted to highlight first is that we are about to start the new summer season. We know the capacity challenges we have in Europe. We all have in mind how we need to evolve the system in terms of further developing the capacity, having as well a more efficient airspace, better and greener trajectories. And we all know, I think, and acknowledge in this room that we rely heavily on the CNS infrastructure as a core component of the aviation system. Nothing of this can happen without evolving the CNS system, without as well keeping it alive and resilient. But I will not be doing my job properly as an EASA director without mentioning safety. I will start basically this talk with an event, with an illustration of what CNS means from a safety standpoint. This is an event that I went through in my previous job a couple of years ago. It took place on the 23rd of May 2022 at around 11:30 in the morning with an aircraft, an A320, coming from Stockholm to CDG. The crew was about to start the final approach. The approach was based on the RNP with Baro Vinav. So this is where the navigation part kicks in. Basically, it got cleared by the controller to further proceed with the approach, communicating the QNH. And the controller, unfortunately, made a mistake in communicating the QNH. She communicated 1011 instead of 1001. And then basically everything went wrong. The aircraft started its final approach about 280 feet below the slope, below the approach pass. And then it carries on with some communication with ATC. The controller communicated, by the way, to another aircraft the same wrong QNH. This other aircraft on the other end corrected the QNH without the controller noticing that the QNH was corrected. Sorry, I have to get this right. And of course, the QNH communicated was not the right one and was not the one which was on the ATIS. So the crew never noticed this difference. Then the flight continues for a while. After a certain point in time, there have been again a miscommunication because the EMSO, so the system alerting ATC about a risk of collision with the terrain, was triggered in the CDG tower, and it wasn't noticed by the controller in the first place, and then it was noticed and communicated to the pilot. But there again, the pilot and the crew was too busy doing other things and never acknowledged this information that the EMSO alert was triggered. So communication as well, and here we rely on VHF communication, is an important factor, and it is as well a safety barrier that we use in aviation. And unfortunately, on that particular case, it didn't work. EMSO was triggered based on surveillance data. So that's where surveillance kicks in as well, because you could say, okay, this is where the last safety barrier could have played its role. But again, unfortunately, it went unnoticed in the conversation between the pilot and the controller. So it shows to a certain extent the intrication of the navigation, communication, and safety components. And that's why I wanted to illustrate this with this example. Just to tell you the end of the story, all what I'm saying is fully public. The Safety Investigation Bureau in France made a report out of it. At a certain point in time, the crew believed that they had reached the minimum altitude for decision making, and they decided to abort the approach, not being able to see the terrain. And at this point in time, the aircraft was 6 feet above the ground, 1 kilometer away from the runway, in the middle of a cornfield. So, I mean, I mentioned this event because this is something that kept me awake at night several days when we were notified about it. And not only they did that once, but then they did the go around and they restarted the approach. Same mistake on the QNH, same wrong acknowledgement from the crew about the wrong QNH compared to the ATIS, and same sequence over again. Fortunately, the second time the EMSO kicked in again, it was properly handled by the controller and by the crew, and they did another go around, and finally the third time was a good one, and they managed to land safely at CDG. Again, I mentioned this example because it's very hard in 2020, well, it was 2022 at that time, to stand maybe at some point in front of families and to explain that they are in front of you because there was a mistake between a 0 and a 1. I don't think this is something that can be explained in our modern world. So I'm just, again, not to, let's say, start this conference with a very, I would say, doom tone. It's really to make sure that we all are mindful about what CNS means for the future of aviation, but as well for its present, including in terms of safety. And I really believe this is something on which we have to act collectively upon. I really believe that we have the ability to do better, and that's what I'm going to try to illustrate in the next couple of minutes. I think overall, what we need, and we all acknowledge that, is a system that can catch up with the challenges in a much more agile responsive ways than what we have today, with very long cycles of technology, with very burdensome implementation. And the big question is, how do we get there? So first of all, before trying to answer that with maybe 2 examples, I want to say that I believe we are well equipped. We are well equipped because we have skills, competencies in the industry, but as well in the institutions, whether it is at European level with EUROCONTROL, with SESAR Research and Innovation, bringing new technology through innovative solutions, with the deployment manager, with the role of the network manager as a CNS manager as well. So all this is a coherent setup. You could argue that it can be refined, it can be improved, and certainly it can. But overall, we have the competency, we have the skills, and all this setup is working with the industry as well to provide solutions. To provide solutions through terrestrial communication links, through satellite communication links, and so on. And we have this environment which is available. We have a couple as well of solutions that are emerging, but yet we are still in the very same situation as we were somehow 10 and 15 years ago. So how do we overcome this difficulty of moving the system ahead? Acknowledging that it's a complex system, that it's not just Europe that I've mentioned, but it has to go across the globe. It is a global and interoperable effort that we have to go through. So this means as well that global parties, whether we talk about the FAA, whether we talk about ICAO, whether we talk about other regions, whether we talk as well about standardization bodies that play a key role in this setup, we need to get our act together. So how do we do that? I've just tried to illustrate that by 2 examples. The first one is related to TBO. I mean, you know, this is something which is close to my heart, having worked in SESAR for a while. This is a fantastic concept of operation. It has materialized already through advanced technology in the cockpit. Advanced technology as well in the ground system. This has been demonstrated, this has been proven, but we miss a very important link, which is to do that, we need to communicate properly, and from a data standpoint, not from a voice communication standpoint. And we know today that we have limitation in the data communication setup. I think that there's been a new study undertaken on the VDL2 capacity and where we will reach the end of the system from that standpoint. And to a certain extent, we know that we have, again, on this particular example, to overcome this situation of not having the right pipes somehow to communicate with the aircraft. I think the good news is that we have something. We are not starting from scratch. So we have VDL2, we have this technology, which is a terrestrial one, established. And in my view, this is where we can build further by being more aggressive, more innovative on developing new pipes, new links between the aircraft and the ground system, or between the aircraft themselves, because we can afford it, as we have already something that works. It will have some limitation. We know those limitations, but we have something that works. So we can work on the so-called multi-link concept, and this is where I'm heading at, to say we have to think in terms of how do we hybrid the model that we have today of VDL2 with other potential links. And this is a concept that has been worked upon by EASA, by the FAA, by Boeing, by Airbus, and later on as well, bringing all this into the SESAR ATM master plan. This notion of hyper-connectivity of ATM and aircraft is something which I believe is essential and on which we really need to, again, act upon and start developing, not developing, but implementing new links. I believe as well personally that we can reach a situation where we have a blending of links between commercial links that can be used for purely commercial applications, which will be adapted to carry safety of life services. This can be done with traditional links, which are much more secured, on which we are investing, let's say, the traditional ATM approach. So this combination of the two is, I think, the right way forward, and we have to push as well the system to act in this direction by acknowledging that we cannot we don't need to have only one link to make the system work. We can afford to work in a multi-link environment. Second example I wanted to mention, and this is another example which is close to my heart. I'm speaking in front of the guys from the EASA, and they put a lot of nice examples in my speaking notes, and I have to be very careful that I stick to that, otherwise they will complain about it. Second example is about the architecture of the system. As you know, we conducted some while ago an architecture study about how we decouple the physical infrastructure from the service provision. And this has further been carried out in the context of the new edition of the master plan. This is now fully integrated. And I have to acknowledge the good work done by the SESAR 3JU from that standpoint. We have this as a concept. We have this notion of decoupling of the infrastructure to remove somehow the complexity of the big spaghetti balls that we are dealing with, and to think more in terms of service, and to think more on the other end in terms of infrastructure. But to do that as well, we need to act on how we adapt the regulatory framework. We need to as well refocus maybe a number of existing mandate, existing regulation onto service provision and not onto technology. That's a so-called performance-based approach, but not just only that. To me, something which I've always failed to understand is why, as an airline, you don't have simply an obligation to subscribe a service provision which connects you to the ground system. And then there would be an offer of different services with different links. But all what you care as an airline is to be able to connect to ATC with a certain level of requirements. We shouldn't be prescriptive about how you're going to do that. And same thing from the ATM standpoint, the ATM system should be able to absorb different type of services, communication links with the aircraft. So again, all this will require a change of the regulatory approach from being very prescriptive about the technology we want to have to something which is more service-based, service-oriented. On those two examples, the regulatory approach has to evolve. Well, this is something on which EASA is working on. So I noticed that the title is the role of EASA in all this. Don't get excited about it. Our role is to make sure that we do all this with the safety objective being maintained, and to make sure that you can be as innovative, as creative as you want in this environment. But at the end, there will be someone looking at what you do, and that's basically EASA to say this is safe, you can go ahead, or this is unsafe, you have to redo what you do. That's the main role of EASA. And of course, to do that, to prepare to new technology, we need to prepare ourselves for it. That's why all the work that is being carried out with EUROCONTROL, with SESAR, with the standardization body is extremely important, so that we can get acquainted as a regulator to prepare future regulations that fits this new landscape, that we acquire as well the competencies in-house to be able to deal with it. The other element beyond the regulation itself is the conformity assessment. How do we make sure that the product and the services which will be delivered in this new context are matching the requirements and the specification which are required from a regulatory standpoint. This is an important step that actually the agency is taking in moving into the ATM system certification. So ATM is entering in Europe into a new world. The fact that we certify services, that we certify systems, that we certified as well the producers of those systems, so through the so-called DPO. We have, which stands for Design Production and Design or Production Organization, and this has started. So we are now in the process of certifying or giving the EASA approval to a number of industry players that are providing systems, ATM systems or services, and I think it offers a new ground for the future evolution. Of course, it's important today because it will secure the fact that if you are an NSP and you buy a system from one of your preferred suppliers, and I know there are some of them in the room, I mean, whether you buy them in Ireland, whether you buy them in France, whether you buy them in Germany, this system will be certified by the agency. And this means that there are a number of things that you don't have to redo from a local standpoint, that your regulator or your safety security oversight won't have to look at because it's already certified by the agency. Of course, local safety case and so on will have to be done, but the software assurance, the fact that the organization itself is structured to deliver quality products and services, you won't have to redo it. So it will generate, I think, a very important momentum in our domain. We have to do it right. That's a big challenge for the team right now to get through that. We have to do it in a collaborative spirit because we could easily as well lock the system if we are not careful, but I think it is a way forward. So again, two examples, two illustrations of how we approach things. I think I've mentioned a couple of things I wanted to highlight. Yeah, the industry standards, they are very important because again, we cannot invent everything from a regulatory standpoint. We do expect the industry to get their act together, to make proposals, to be innovative, but as well to standardize the approach because we need interoperability. So we need RTCA, we need EUROCA to work on those standards so that then we can incorporate that as mean of compliance and we can bring them as well towards the ICAO as global standards. What else did I wanted to do? Maybe to acknowledge that there is as well an element that we have to take into account. That's a point I really wanted to make. That we have to as well take into account the upcoming threats. And we know there are many in aviation, starting with the cyber threats. We have built all the CNS system in a very open manner. It's not resilient to cyber threats, so that's why we have to act on it. The agency has developed the so-called Part-IS about information security. This is something that is being implemented. It provides an additional layer of mitigation. It provides some complexity, unfortunately, as well. But the idea is that really we need to factor this into the future evolution of the system. And we need as well to recover somehow with the current system, how we protect it from a cyber security standpoint. Second element, which I wanted to highlight from this point of view in terms of current and future threats, is the spectrum. All this is very nice. We all have in mind that the CNS somehow system is protected because we are using aviation protected spectrum. The thing is that it is protected only if we protect it. And today, I can tell you that I don't think it is well protected. We don't have enough vigilance about interferences. We don't have enough monitoring of the situation across the entire airspace. We know there are severe events impacting in particular the GNSS in relation to interferences, but it can impact anything. It can impact ILSs, it can impact VHF radio. All this was protected 50 years ago because to interact with those frequencies, you needed some very special devices which were complex, which were manufactured only by some industry players, and it was not accessible to anyone. Today, that's not the case anymore. You can buy anything on internet, as you know. You can talk to an aircraft, you can fake an ADS-B position, you can jam, spoof, whatever you want quite easily. And then there are, of course, more advanced technique. But all this shows as well the vulnerabilities that we have. And I have a big call, and we have joined forces with EUROCONTROL, with the European Commission, with the member states to go to ICAO to highlight this topic, to say we have to be more mindful about how we protect our spectrum. I'm very happy to see that a couple of weeks ago, ICAO has reacted towards the United Nations by writing a formal letter with ITU and some other organization to call for some more action, some more awareness as well on this particular topic. And this is very important because if we don't do that, the rest of what we talk about is basically meaningless. And the last point I really wanted to make, but I think I've covered that already quite a lot. It's the need to act at global level. I don't think we can work in a direction from a European standpoint that is different from the ones that the US will be going in the next coming years. From that standpoint, we really need to be united from a technical standpoint. We really need the ICAO framework as well to give the assurance in particular to the airlines that what we do is going to be implementable around the globe, is going to be applied around the globe, and that not all regions are going to have their own particular system with all the interoperability problems that it generates. So again, I think we have to really act globally from that standpoint. just to reach my conclusion, I won't be much longer than that. To me, what we do here perfectly fits as well with how we have tried to restructure the strategy of EASA. EASA has grown quite a lot over the last decade. Now we are really trying to make sure that we do the right things and we do them right, that we focus on what is our mandate. For that, we have 5 pillars. One is related to safety, so no doubt about that. I think I've talked enough about it. Second one is about global. I've talked about it as well. We cannot act in isolation. We need to take into account the fact that European citizens, airlines travel the world, and we need to act in this global context. The third one is sustainability. That's quite new for the agency. We have a new mandate that came recently from that standpoint. We are working really hand in hand, I would say, on that one with EUROCONTROL as well, to make sure that we maximize the synergies and the effort from that standpoint to prepare the system, but as well to monitor the implementation of the greening of aviation through sustainable aviation fuel, through labelization of flights, and so on. The fourth pillar is innovation. How do we take on board all this new trend in our business, in our industry, in technology as well, at a faster pace? How do we get prepared for it? How do we prepare regulation that is not prescriptive, but that is enabling? And finally, resilience. This pillar is more about the agency itself, but it's as well making sure that not only the system is safe, sustainable, but that it is resilient as well. It's important for the operations, and it is important as well for the agency itself to be prepared to cope with this large amount of challenges. I stop there. I was a bit longer than what I thought, actually. I don't know if we still have time for a couple of questions. I will be happy.
I believe we do. So you have the opportunity to ask for some additional questions. Fabian. The mic.
Okay, yeah, I can only acknowledge that, especially at a time when we are facing a mandate which in Europe pushes all the system to move towards space-based navigation as a primary mean, while we are facing interferences, which actually forces a number of ANSPs to revert back to conventional navets and so on. So the ILSs are again today, even today, playing an important role, and probably in the next coming years, it will continue like that. So, I mean, this question of how do we move faster at a faster pace, I see it's a complex equation. Cooperation is at the core of it, but I don't think it's only cooperation. It's again having a regulatory framework that is more enabling than being prescriptive. We should bother as a regulator about what is the performance of the system, but not how you achieve it. This being said, whenever I say that, there is somebody asking a question, how can we get more guidance material? Can we get more means of compliance to help us to develop the new system? And I think, again, it's a question of moving the system all together. We can be less prescriptive, more performance oriented, but the rest of the ecosystem has to be ready to acknowledge that and to work differently. I strongly believe, from my personal experience as well, that it is a question of mindset overall. That's why this forum is extremely important, because that's how we evolve the mindset of the industry. The mindset of the industry was really to focus on technology by silo, communication, navigation, surveillance. I remember when I started my work well, in this great organization a couple of years back, they were experts on those three domains. And more those systems are blending. ADSB is surveillance, but it is communication as well. So you cannot take them separately. So the mindset, again, of how we work on technology has to evolve. I think the mindset of the decision makers as well on the ANSP side, on the industry side, has to change in terms of focusing on the added value that is being delivered at the end to the airlines, to the users of the system, and not focusing too much or only on the operations. I think today technology drives our economies, it drives society, and still in our very aviation domain, we tend to think that it's only an enabler or support to the operations. Actually, it should be shaping much more the operations. If it will be the case, the incident I mentioned, or the event I mentioned previously would not have happened. We would have driven it from a data standpoint. We would have made sure that the data flows seamlessly from the weather station that is recording the QNH directly into the cockpit without being translated through a voice communication and potentially leading to this type of human errors, which will always happen. No matter what you do, this will always happen at some point in time. So again, I think the fact that we are mindful and more focused on what technology can offer to us and more drive the system with the technology being at the core of it, I think this is a part of the cultural change as well we have to bring.
Time for one more question, depending on the time that you will take to answer, Florian.
Yeah, I'll be shorter. So sorry, I can be excited about CNS, as you can see. So.
Maybe one point that I would like to make, I mean, you made a lot of points actually in your talk. You talk about innovation, you talk technology, communications, and what I want to highlight is that there is a technical part in this session after the lunch break, but it's really addressing all these aspects. We're having actually specific sections for communications, addressing hyperconnectivity, addressing LDAC, so there is really a lot of elements, and this is a good opportunity. One of the things that ICNS has been doing, really pushing to put COM, NAV, and surveillance together, and that's where the I for our conference is standing for. So with this, I want to thank very much Florian for his keynote, and on behalf of ICNS, we have a small thank you, a small crystal, if I manage to open it, to thank you for this one. Thank you, Florian.
Many thanks, and I wish you a really good conference. Thank you.
Thank you. I was trying to spend some more time. So we want to thank you very much, Raul and Florian, for this. So while we're preparing now for our next call, I think that what we heard from Raul also talking about the new role of the CNS program manager. And those that have been attending actually the ICNS before, you know that usually on our first day, we're having the global harmonization as one of our main plenary notes. So what keynote of plenary sessions. So what we're going to do actually is to try to bring these two together. We had also from Raul talking about collaboration, and we are putting these two items actually together in what is going to be a bit also of a different setting. So we thought we're going to have what you see here, the CNS Cafe. So a bit of a more informal item. And then for this, what I would like is to introduce, to ask actually, to ask Colleen Horisco to come onto the stage. Colleen is the director of Africa, Europe, and Middle East, and she's based in Brussels. And then Predrag Brankovic is the team leader of the CNS program manager, and will let us through this next plenary on CNS evolution and global harmonization.
Okay, Colleen, so I wanted to talk to you about something. Do you have a time for coffee?
I would love a coffee.
I really
Thank
have
you.
a big issue here. You know, we got this big task from the Commission to work on the CNS evolution plan. And this document is supposed to drive the, you know, the evolution of the CNS in the network. And then with my team, we started looking into this. And my God, so many challenges, you know, like the people are working locally in their countries on real problems, you know, they need to support the operations. At the same time, we have this regional kind of European perspective, we need to evolve in a harmonized way. And then on top of all of that, there is a global aspect as well, you know, it's really difficult. So what is from your perspective? I mean, what are your experiences with this?
Well, it's interesting that you bring it up. I recently heard the executive director of EASA speak, and you know, he talked about how do we get there, you know, and what do we need to do, and how we can, you know, come together. And I, you know, for people that are not in aviation and don't understand CNS, I always talk about, you know, if we're building a bridge, right, and the people on this side are working on this part of the bridge, and the people on this side are working on the bridge, the regulations, the standards can be the same, and yet they can miss in the middle, right? So we want to make sure when we build that bridge that in the middle that they meet. And how do we do that, right? That's the big challenge. I think that there's so many challenges about making this a harmonized, you know, global system, and how do we do that? I mean, you know, ICNS has been at this for 25 years, and it seems like, you know, there's every time we get a step closer, there's another threat, there's another challenge, there's a spectrum issue, there's a cybersecurity issue, things that we didn't, or maybe we did think about 25 years ago, and you know, and so I think it's a really, really good question. I wish I had the answer.
And then technology, my God, like I feel that every month there is a new thing, you know, like it's really progressing very fast, and you know, the system needs to keep up with that. And yeah, it's quite difficult. I think we might need to invite some friends to help us on this topic, you know.
I think so.
It's very, very difficult one to crack alone.
Yes.
So why don't we invite first our friend Hug from Airbus and our friend Jose Luis from Indra to give us a bit of an industry perspective. Please, guys, come in.
Well, thank you all. It's great to see you for coffee. I'm glad you were able to join us. So, you know, as Predrag and I were just talking about, you know, the challenges to global harmonization of CNS, right? What do you guys see that, you know, from your perspectives, from Airbus, from Indra, what does that look like? What are the challenges that you face?
Yeah. Thank you for providing me the opportunity to answer to this tricky question. By the way, Florian did a very comprehensive list and menu of what we are talking about. So first, we need to start by the beginning, which is safety. So Florian was totally right. What we are talking about is primarily safety. Then the challenge, which is more an opportunity for our business, is to face the traffic demand increase. The demand for traffic is still increasing, so it means that more and more aircraft will fly, and then there will be a capacity difficulty. Associated with that, this is our duty to reach the carbon neutrality by 2050. So mixing both traffic demand increase, traffic increase, and decreasing the overall impact on the planet is a terrible challenge. And the last one is the efficiency. We talk here about business, so the business needs to still be profitable for all the actors. So 4 ingredients, the first one at the top being safety, but the 3 other one being very, very demanding in terms of innovations, coordinations, harmonizations, and technologies. And here is the role of the CNS.
And Jose Luis, how do you see it from the, you know, Indra is one of the biggest manufacturers of the ground equipment, and you know, you work in so many countries. I remember being so impressed with the portfolio of the countries that you work with. So what for you, what do you think are the main challenges for your part of the kind of the ecosystem for the CNS?
First of all, buenos días, good morning everyone, and thank you for giving us this opportunity to participate in this panel. Several challenges have been already mentioned by Florian this morning. Related with the communication, we have a big challenge that there is the air-ground data link capacity. There is limiting the services. In ground, there is we need to improve the network that we have. We have several networks like ACARS, ATN, OSI. Now we are moving to ATN, IPS, and the flow data management between all different stakeholders. We need to improve this. EUROCONTROL is doing a very good job in this with the network manager. For navigation, we have a big problem now with the GNS interference that we need to solve. This is affecting one of the more critical flying phase, that there is the approach. Then there is potential solution like dual frequency or with a multi-constellation, and can be also not in a first time, but in middle term using LEO PNT constellation. Related with the surveillance, there is not so much big issues, but we can improve several things. For example, we can increase the security surrounding the airport, installing 3D radars or multilateration system or passive wide area multilateration. Related with the ADSB, for example, we need to increase the integrity and the privacy of the data. And related with the spectrum, with the pollution of the spectrum, for secondary radars, there is we can improve the use of the spectrum, removing the old secondary radar and installing the new one, the selective mode S radars. And this is for CNS, but there is another topic that is transversal to all of them. For example, the security and the cybersecurity. We need to increase the security of our infrastructure. There is a problem that is coming and will increase. And for me, the big challenge that we have is the regulation process. Regulation and certification process is the more critical thing, because now we are here in a technological conference. There is many people focusing in the solving the technology solution, but it will take more than 20 years to adopt any kind of technical solution, because the regulation process and the certification, there is one thing that we need to improve. In the top there is ICAO, and there is all the other regulator like European Commission, EASA, or FCC, or FAA, and other standard organization like EUROCAE, RTCA, AEC, but we need to do something. I don't know what, but we need to improve the regulation and certification process. If we don't do nothing, will be a big problem in the future.
Jose, it's interesting that you say that, because I see our friend, our ICAO friend, Raza Ali Ghulam, is behind us, and I'm sure he'd love to join us for a cup of coffee too, and maybe that's something that he could speak to.
Yes, and Agnes as well. So let's connect the bridge fully then to the other side of the Atlantic with our colleagues from ICAO and Boeing, please. Welcome. So what do you guys think? What is your view? Let's hear from your end.
So first of all, I'll be a little bit formal in the beginning. So thank you for inviting us. And actually, it's a pleasure to be here. And I would like to congratulate ICNS with their Silver Jubilee. So it's a very, very good event. So congratulations. And it proves that it's really a very important event that is going on. And that's why actually we at ICAO, we try our best with the limited budget. We come and support this event. But I think, what can I say? A lot of things from ICAO, I can, for us, from the top to the level that we have to take care of. But Florine and my colleague Jose has hit the nail for us on the on the regulation issue. So what I can say actually there is you know, for us, you know, ICAO mandate, first of all, we work according to our mandate. So our mandate is, first of all, and our colleagues said it and said it's a safe. We have to have a safe, secure, and of course, cost-effective, efficient international civil aviation. And that's and in cooperation and collaboration with our member states. So this is our mandate, first of all. So the word cooperation is already included. Yes, we know these challenges, and as I said, the challenges from the regulatory point of view, yes, we have a regulatory point of view challenges. Are we addressing it, not addressing it? Yes, we try to address them, of course. If we don't address them, we will not reach to where we are today. So the good news is we are already addressing them. We are putting always some new initiatives. The third day, I think there will be some more details on these initiatives, but just let you know about the integration of like the integration of the ICNSs. We have formed, I think, since 4 years an ICNSS task force. They are looking at how to do this integration. Their work is divided actually in the regulations, and first of all in the regulation and the technology. So on the technology side is the roadmaps and all these things, but the regulations, we are trying to do our best. And actually, as we know, the process, the technology moves fast, you know, and the regulations, we cannot move them. So we are trying our best to come up with that. One of the fundamental things of, from the regulation side, I'll see that it's in our head, but as we said, it's not only regulation. If technology is moving fast, and we have also some states that they need to implement this technology, somehow saying about the technology, implementation also needs money, funds. Okay, so from our side of point of view, we also think about the states, the developing states, and we have slogan also, I think you must all know about it, is no country left behind. So one of the most things that we try to do, we also try to bring all the states together. And how we do it, there are a lot of things. I think we will try to cover them about this thing. But new things also come up, like the cyber thing. It's a new thing. It's a cyber threats. We have seen about it. Are we doing something? Yes, we try to do something. We have formed a new panel, and for the standards, you know, since I mentioned panel, I don't know, people must be knowing that we try, although we have the panel are actually the member or expert groups that they develop what we call the SARPs, which is the standards recommended practices, and we try to bring the whole globe together in this panel, and we take the perspective of experts and regions. So all these things. So I think a lot of challenges happening, a lot of work going on, and we try to cope up with that thing. But these are the things that we'll try to work on them. Spectrum is one of the things. Cyber threat is one of the things. Budget is one thing, and the regulation, how to make them catch up with the pace of the technology. So I think that's few of the things that I can mention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Agnes, what about you? I mean, you work in government affairs in Boeing, and there is this also aspect of the whole story. And I see now, while dealing with the CNS evolution plan, there are many issues that are more policy issues, sovereignty issues related to CNS. You know, the national airspace is something that, you know, it has an important defense perspective as well. And, you know, I know you are active in this ecosystem. So what is from your perspective the main challenges that you see?
Thank you for inviting me to this great CNS Cafe and with great co-speakers here. Indeed, I mean, it is also, we talked a lot already, and it's tough to come after at the end of the first round, but indeed, there's the technology side, regulatory side, challenges that keep piling up. And in the middle of this, or on top of all this, you also had add the political layer. Indeed, we are in a space, and you know, EUROCONTROL is great organization to talk about this, of course, where some of what we're talking about also touch upon sovereignty. We are in an environment that keeps, you know, moving definitely, and where challenges keep piling up. And so we have to take that into consideration as well. So, you know, in order to try to find solutions and move forward, you know, at the 25th year of this conference and trying to move forward, we have to indeed try to get the industry together, certainly, but also get fully on board the political side, so that we sometimes, when the regulatory process might take too long, then when you have the political buy-in, actually that sometimes can be where it accelerates. However, it can also be where things get really tricky and things slow down. So as a global manufacturer and Airbus and Boeing, I think we are on the same line here. We also need those solutions to be global. We are, as we've heard already, and as all of you know, and I'm happy also to see the young generation among us at the CNS Cafe. It is a global industry, and so we have to push those harmonization, cooperation, again and again, whether we're talking about finding the next technological solution or the policy, regulatory, or even standard that is the missing link in this complex puzzle that gets more and more complex, as we've just discussed. So I don't think there's a one answer. It is a multifaceted problem.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't know if before we do another round, just to tell you about the QR code on the slide. So we also want to ask the audience what you guys think. So please scan the QR code. We will just very soon launch a survey to you to see what you think, and this will be based for me and Colleen to moderate this conversation with our panelists. So you can scan the code, and then you will see a question there. And I don't know, I just asked the follow-up question to you guys. So you mentioned the certification, regulatory, standardization issue that, you know, is something that we need to improve. So I also wonder from Airbus perspective, you know, how do you see this? Because, you know, I also see that for CNS evolution plan, we are building this big roadmap, and we need to build in this time basically to know when the technology will be available. And this is something that I find also very complex, the, you know, standardization process, which is kind of a voluntary, everybody puts the resources, and then, you know, what needs regulation, what does not need regulation, where is that fine balance to achieve. So I know that the air side was, you know, aircraft side was doing that quite effectively, and the ground side is a bit now with the new conformity assessment and everything is catching up. So can you let us know from both of your perspectives?
Yes, this is a good question. We talk about standardization, and the keywords are always the two one: safety and interoperability. The translation of making a worldwide system in terms of techniques is interoperability. We need to design aircraft which are connecting people at the planet level. So it means that the aircraft needs to be designed to be interoperable whatever the place it is operating. And this is utmost important stake for all the airframers. So this being said, standardization is here to support the two pillars, safety and interoperability. Both are totally linked. And ICAO is, by the way, having a tremendous role in that to make those standards totally recognized and applied worldwide. And here I'm referring to the GAMP, for instance. So this being said, is it difficult? Yes. Yes, it is difficult. Is it costly? Yes. But the cost and the difficulty is not only, there is a meaning behind that. First is the technical difficulty of what we are doing. Safety needs to provide proofs and evidence that yes, it is safe. So the question about being safe is not just to see that it is safe, is to demonstrate ab initio before things are operated that it is safe. And this is not a work in the park technically. Second element, a part of safety and the technical job to be done to demonstrate the safety is interoperability. As well, it's complex because each state, the regions are not totally harmonized in terms of technical means and rules. So we talk about harmonization. It's not as well only for the techniques, it's also for the rules. And again, ICAO is playing a tremendous important job in that perspective. And looking back more locally, EUROCONTROL, EASA, for the sake of the European Union, and ICAC are doing as well a very important role in that perspective. So I am referring to the Single European Sky. Voilà, so we say it's long, yes, but there is a price to pay for the harmonization worldwide and for the safety. Last but not least, time is not only the difficulty brought by standardization, is as well by the investment. Designing things is something which is important. So there are some research being next gen in the US or CETIS or SESAR in Europe. But once we have the solution and SESAR has a very, very big and thick catalog of available solutions, the point is to invest, to put money on the table to deploy them. And here comes a tricky question about aviation, which is it's a collective effort. So when in a collective effort, there is someone who is needing to invest first, not only or not for himself as a selfish return of investment, but for collective return on investment, it comes the difficulties. And the question of investment is, by the way, the utmost difficulties that we have today in deploying new technologies. It's not the innovation, it's not the innovation, it's not the problem, it's a solution.
So that's what you see as as one of the biggest challenges, right? Is just the financing and the investment in the technology and the work. It was interesting, you know, listening to you talk and listening to the question about, you know, so what those challenges are, because there's some really, really brilliant minds just sitting here in the cafe, right? And in the greater cafe, brilliant minds that can come up with a solution fairly easy, right? So, you know, back to Jose and what you see as, you know, some of the dependencies or you know, what are those challenges for you? Or are they the same as for Airbus and for Boeing and, you know, and to some extent ICAO?
I want to differentiate two things, okay? One is the title of this panel is Global Harmonization. What means harmonization is to reduce the gap between different things. For example, in Europe, we are implementing ATN, OSI, and in USA, they are implementing ATN, IPS, different things. Then we are not, why we are not going to the global standardization? Because standardization is a single reference. No, harmonization can be different gap. Of course, that the money and the time and the time to deploy the system could take different decisions because the different challenges in different parts. This is one thing. And the other is, beside the cost, the cost of the implementation, the regulation process. Two examples. MODES, secondary radar MODES, was defining in the 80s. Okay, the concept. The standard was developing by the 2000, kind of, and after another 20 years that we are in 2025, there is still more than 100 radars, no MODES in the Central Europe, and the MODES was defined to reduce the problem of the spectrum, and we are still here with more than 100 radars, no MODES in Europe. Why? This is maybe economical one.
I think one thing that we see as we visit the member states, and then I'll let Alexandra launch the question while we discuss this, so everybody can reply. One thing that we see is these renewal cycles, you know, for CNS. It's not just, you know, because of the investment and because of the cost that we have in the system. It's not something that, you know, you buy every day and you switch off. So we are really much dependent, at least on the ground, on this, and also in the aircraft on this. You know, nobody wants to do the, you know, retrofit. So it's very difficult to. I think these investment cycle are something that we need to take into account.
But this is a part of the layer of the life cycle of the system. Okay, but in the beginning there is the the standardization of the new technology. What happened now with the LDAX? LDAX was defining 12, 15 years ago or 20 years ago, maybe started.
Yeah.
After close to 20 years, there is not still the standard produced and approved in the ICAO, for example.
I think
And
colleagues are
how
working on it,
many
yeah.
years we will need to implement and to deploy? Another
Agree.
20? This is a problem for this sector.
It's a challenge. It's a challenge. I mean, it's I think we have the session later on, as Nikos mentioned already, on LDAX and all these details we can engage these days on these specific technologies that are coming up. And Florian mentioned the multi-link concept. I mean, it's an interesting and important one for us to tackle, as we are in a very special moment right now with the second link SATCOM Class B available for deployment. So it's a big, big topic for us here in Europe, and I think globally as well. Okay, so as results are coming in, I don't know if you guys, well, I mean, I see the split is pretty much equal. It's very small. I think we have the leading topic is GNSS disruption minimum operating network. So while I'm on this, I don't know if anyone wants to comment on the top answer is GNSS disruption and regulatory certification evolution. So regulatory certification evolution, okay, this one I think we tackled, but I don't know if anyone wants to address the GNSS interference issue. Oh, please.
Well, this is a good teaser for the panel of tomorrow or after tomorrow.
Yeah.
So there will be an extensive discussion in that. Yes, obviously, it is a big problem. It's theoretical everywhere. In practices, is very localized. And where it is localized, it's a terrific burden. So there is no way to escape. We need to do something. When we say need, is airframers, Boeing, Airbus. And by the way, Boeing and Airbus did a joint presentation in the name of ICCAR 2 weeks ago at a council of ICAO. And the plans are pretty adjusted, and you will see that after tomorrow in the dedicated panel. So yes, it is. It's not a threat. It is an issue. The problem is real. Again, we need to step back a little. The problem is in theory everywhere. In practice, it is not everywhere. Most of the planet is green. If you look at the different indicators that you can see on the web, there are very well done web pages on that. Anyway, there are some red spots, and we need to tackle the red spot. And we need to design the aviation so that in case there are small red spots pumping in the currently green operation, that the aviation is still resilient and safe. So in any case, we have to do something. But the time is not to panic, I would say. The panic is in the red zone. Yes, there is a big problem. And the difficulty is the geographical localization of this red zone is affecting a lot of very important flights coming from east to west or west to east. A lot of very big customers are affected by this. Voilà. So this being said, solutions are here. It will take a little bit of time to deploy. In 2 years time frame, we should have a mix of technical solution and operational solutions, both from Boeing and Airbus at the disposal and not at the disposal in operations to overcome the threat. But it will be longer to have a definitive solution, and it will require quite a lot of investment. By the way, it is part of the big question, what is making the system moving? The system is moving when there is a real need for change. And here we have one. So regarding the GNSS, there is a real need for change, and we will move jointly, all of us. Part of it, there was also a question about the minimum operating network. It clearly means that aviation cannot only rely even in the green zone on a single system, the GNSS, to make everything in terms of navigation. So we still need to keep the existing legacy navigates, ILS and DMEs. And the general aviation may need more because they don't have inertial reference system. So we cannot cope with the dream, which was to say GNSS only for everything everywhere. So we need to keep multi-system based on traditional and conventional navigates. Here we are.
I don't know, Raza, if you want to say, I know ICAO is very active on GNSS interference. There was this conclusion So if you want to say something.
Yeah, so thank you. Actually, I think it's also showing 41 or 51 now. Yes, it's very important topic that actually taking most of our resources nowadays. At the very highest level and up to the panel level, just to let you know how important it is. So from a very high level, from our Secretary General, not only in ICAO, we involved also the ITU and the IMO. So I think Florine has already mentioned about something which is actually a joint declaration that we had worked all the 3 UN organizations which are involved on this one. So of course, that's one of the initiatives, but the other things, as my colleague was saying, we are doing, actually my colleagues right now, we are sitting here, we are conducting seminars on GNSS everywhere in each region. So I think all the regions will be receiving this, how to make this harmonization, how to make everything, you know, even if what we are saying is the minimum operational network, if these minimum operational networks are different everywhere, that's again we are losing the harmonization. Okay, so I think this is also one of the topics we are briefing the council. I think this was the first time that happens. In the same session we had briefed the council twice on the GNSS. So it's a very very active thing. We are taking the actions to the extent we can do. And the panel, which is actually we have a panel which is got the navigation system panel. They have already been assigned a very high priority job card. We call it something like how to develop, to work on this harmonization of the minimum operational networks. So we don't want that again we end up with something that it's fragmented and everything. So from our point, yeah, we are doing our best. And as I said, we all in each region we are doing this GNSS. We call it GNSS seminars, and we are gathering the information from all the globe because it's affecting everywhere. Okay, so I think we'll come up with something. So that's what I can add.
Thanks. So should we also touch, I see now the results have a bit changed. Air-ground connectivity, high performance air-ground connectivity is one of the things that score the high. And you know, in this ecosystem, we have also some regulatory mandates, AF6 in Europe for the CP1. Also, as I mentioned, we have the multi-link concept. We have this TBO concept that we need to implement. We need high-performing link. Also, Florian mentioned it. I don't know, Agnes, do you, on the Boeing side, I know that, you know, there are discussions on how to you have big customers in Europe, like one of the biggest one is one of the big airlines, Ryanair. So I know there are discussions on, you know, how to evolve this topic and also comply with the regulatory mandate. I don't know if there is anything you can share with us on that one.
Absolutely. Just maybe a parenthesis to go back on GNSS. Fully agree with what the colleagues have said. And also maybe to tie to the first question, that's also where it gets also very political. And as you said, because it is now an urgent issue and there is political attention to it, then we collectively move faster. So I think that's a good example where actually, yes, we have timeline and challenges and standardization processes, but when there's an emergency, we collectively work together, right? So let's take this as a positive sign and keep moving. So on the second point, yes, indeed, I mean, continuous challenges, as you mentioned, the challenge, for instance, of retrofit. Of course, that's you know, a challenge either for the manufacturer or the airline, and we're trying to find the right way forward. What is also guiding us is obviously that whatever new mandates, new requirements also fulfill the safety priority that we have, both as a manufacturer, but also for the airlines, of course, and the whole system. And so that's really what, you know, guides us there. And, you know, in terms of principle, it's always good to have the same rules for everyone and clear timeline. And in some cases, we'll be able to move a bit faster, etc. So I will not go into every single detail, but maybe I would be actually interested to move to the, you know, new technology. I see artificial intelligence is there, not too big. It is not a big one yet. But I would say for the discussions in coming years, it's definitely gonna come up. And linked to that is, or in parallel to that, is also the research we collectively do, and Boeing certainly is leading on that on quantum. And actually, we had last year a 4 hours flight in the US starting from St. Louis with no GPS, actually just using quantum technology. And of course, it's very early stages, but I think it illustrates the fact that on the technology side, there are solutions. We need a bit more time to test and check it out, of course. But that might actually answer different challenges that we're facing now. And add an addition, add a layer, basically, add another level of safety and security. So just wanted to maybe keep this in mind for our little cafe here, that yes, new technologies like AI and quantum are gonna help us leap forward.
Yes, indeed.
So my question actually goes back to something that Jose said, was about, Mode S has been around since the 80s. We have all these technologies that were designed to fix a lot of things that we still have not been able to roll out, right? And the regulation hasn't caught up. So how do we square that, right? How do we, how do we move the regulation process along a little quicker, right, in a way that, as Florian said, is more performance-based and less prescriptive, right? How we get there, and how do we do it more quickly, and so that some of these technologies and some of the new technologies, that Boeing and Airbus are working on, and Indra, can come to fruition quicker. Sorry, that was a hard question.
Very hard. Very.
I can talk
Maybe
about
create a drama. As Agnes
yeah.
mentioned, when we have a drama, everything is possible. So
Yeah.
maybe that we need that.
I think that there is two phases. One is to regulate and to produce the standard, and the other is to deploy the system. Deploy the system is a problem, not the economic problem. It's the benefit. And tomorrow or after this panel, there is another panel that there is how to accelerate the infrastructure by the navigation service provider. They have the money, they have the.
Well, they might argue. They might argue with that.
Or not. There is a. This is a economical problem, but I don't see what to see more.
I think if we could have solved it right now, it would have been solved years ago.
I
But
think so, yes. I don't know, Ugo, do you want to add something on high performance air ground connectivity? I know Airbus colleagues did a lot of work in SESAR framework on this concept of multi-link. I don't know if you want to give some, yeah.
Merci, Petra. By the way, this is an important topic.
It is.
So at the top of the list is the GNSS RFI. And the GNSS RFI has taken the leading part of the main role on the theater play to the data link communication means. So Florian was very explicit on that. Data link is a must-have, must-have pillar to support the real operation for trajectory-based operation. So TDO is wider than only the link between the aircraft and the controller, but without this link, forget about TDO. It will remain not as powerful as we have designed the concept. So this being said, yes, we have a problem. It's not a risk, it's a problem in Europe in particular, which is the saturation of the VDL mode 2. And the future for that is multi-link. Multi means more than two or more. So we have the third generation, which is the VDL mode 2. And thanks to the Europe support in Marsat and ESSP, there is already the second generation, which is available and ready for deployment, and it works. It's called IRIS. It's using in Marsat L-band Class B SATCOM. And this is working in a totally safe and secure manner. So will it be enough? The answer is no, because equipping a single aisle, being Boeing on Airbus with L-band, is not the choice of all the customers, because the primary choice for an aircraft to be equipped with such a SATCOM is for the airlines operations to have in-flight permanent connectivity for the cockpit, not for the passenger, for the cockpit. And Iris comes on top, let's say, for free for the ANSPs to use it. It's not totally for free. And by the way, the question about who will bear the communication cost is quite a tricky question, and which is at the top of the discussion today in Europe. Will it be enough? The answer is certainly not. So there is still improvement plan, which is ongoing, controlled by EUROCONTROL, by the CNS program manager, to improve the use of the VDL Mode 2. And here we see the things back to the statement of what is the motivation to change. The motivation is when there is no other way to change, we change. And we all collectively are changing, starting by the airlines who are engaged to offload as possible the AOC traffic out of the VDL Mode 2 to some other means. So the action plan on better using the VDL Mode 2 is difficult. We know what we have to do, and the difficulty is now, let's do it.
Yes.
And it will not be enough again. So 1, 2 generation of data link, offloading the AOC will not be enough. We need to prepare for 2035, something like that, the third generation of data link. Here we have 2 candidates, one which is the LDAX, the other one which is to use public link, which is a KU car, which is a data link dedicated to passengers. So it's not safety of flight, to use that one in a marginal way to convey the safety data link. And LDAX, it's well-known technology. So it's absolutely too early to make a choice. Both are still in the research. The 2 solutions have pretty important challenges. None of them is working today. We have not 10 years, because in 10 years we need to start to deploy. So we have, let's say, 6, 7 years to make it real, and then we will start to deploy. Voilà, this is where we are. It's a long journey, but fortunately we have a good program manager, Predrag.
Wow, no pressure, no pressure. Please, Jose Luis, you can.
Yeah, just, linking with this thing and with the previous question. When you define a technology, you need to deploy, and deployment will be spent a lot of thousands of millions of time. And one of the potential solutions to provide global services, a global infrastructure, is a solution from the space. This could be one of the better and faster and cheaper solution for this industry. We can provide communication, VDL Mode 2 from the space, or another one, or surveillance using ADSB as well, or providing PNT from LEO constellation. I think that if you analyze the cost and the benefit and the global solution, the space-based solution, CNS, space-based CNS, will be the better solution for this industry.
Thank you. I see you can, but let me just address this. There are 6 people who said other. I don't know if there is anyone in the room who would like to say, if you want to come up and say what you think is not on the list that you find important. I don't know if there are any colleagues in the room who would want to contribute.
Don't be shy. This is an opportunity actually to come in and give your feedback.
Again, I reiterate, brilliant minds in the room.
Yes.
Feel free to share your thoughts. Because
Maybe that people were not in the room, so maybe people, because that is broadcasted, so it could have been people that cannot come in actually to say.
it's true.
Indeed, and then maybe nobody in the room, but okay, but you know, I think we concluded on one thing: everything is interconnected. It's a very complex framework. To, you know, there are many moving parts. Also, now you introduced a new one, and that's space-based CNS. I think we have a panel in next day or day after where we will deal with that. This becomes more, that ecosystem, you know, becomes so active suddenly, you know, like it's a very fast, you know, I remember Airspace World like 5 years ago, there was maybe one company providing services, and now there is like half of the Airspace World is space-based CNS stuff. So I think the colleagues will discuss that, but, you know, I would like to move to the next question that we have for the participants in our Mentimeter, and that is more related to interdependencies and synergies, the stuff that are connected, you know, like the as we move to these new systems, to AI, to quantum, the data volumes, the automation becomes very important, the role of human, all these other aspects, spectrum, new service delivery models, all these things become very important to deal with. So let's ask the audience what they think, what are the top interdependencies? And I turn the floor to you guys to tell me what do you think about this, like really thinking about the future, maybe medium to long term, like about these things that are important for the CNS. I think we touched on the spectrum is really important. We all know that. But what other things do you think are really key? Maybe Raza, we start from you as you wanted to take the floor.
No, actually, I wanted to give some good news about what we are working about. We were talking about the Class B services and the IRIS and all these things. The good thing is we have been moving quite a lot on that one from the ICAO point of view. We are now also for the multi-link and everything. We have also done the council have approved a lot of new SARPs that's going also in Annex 10. And a new state letter will be coming, although it's a little bit considered slow because of what we are saying, but actually we are trying to cope up. And so let me go back to your now your question about the interdependencies. I think our colleague, she have touched a very hot topic, which is the AI. So how these interdependencies are actually the AI will be. So for AI, all we know, we need a lot of data. So data is very important. So by the way, for the AI and innovations, we also we have normally what we do, these young people in the cafe also, just to let you know, before the assembly, we have the assembly of the ICAO in 42nd ICAO assembly in September, October, and beginning October. We have innovation fairs. So we actually collect all these ideas. We put all these young and we try to integrate all these things. But this is a new challenge that we are trying to work out. And it's, as we said, we need standardizations also for that one. So we try. It's a very, 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 very touchy topic, very, very innovative way. And we are also not taking it the normal path. We are also talking about this innovation in AI in a different path. So that's guidance material instead of putting it through the SARPs and all these things. So these are one of the things that we are already working on it.
Oh, thank you. In the meantime, I see automation is leading the list. So I don't know if anyone has any comment. Automation in CNS and aviation has always been a little bit, I don't know how it's for you, Colleen, in your experience, but every time we talk about, now as we are visiting the member states, we build European MON, like together with the national level. And every time we touch on these topics, people that are really like operating the CNS on the, in a real life operations, they're always a little bit concerned. So, and I see it's one of the top challenges. What do you think? How do we, how do we relax everybody? What is the key to make this step towards more automation in the CNS? I don't know, Agnes, if you want to start.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's a mix of technology and also perception, as you pointed out, and politics as well, because behind automation is the fear that you will lose jobs, right? And how do you ensure that maybe keeping the same number of employees at ANSPs, but using new technologies, using automation, using new software, you actually reach a higher level of safety. And we see challenges, and it's not just in Europe, right? It's a bit a challenge everywhere, where the number of airspace controllers is a big issue across the world. And so that is seen, at least from stakeholders outside ANSP, as one solution. But indeed, you need to manage that as well on a human level, and make sure that you don't do it too fast, I guess. You wanted to come in?
Yes. Attending the name of the question, or the question, interdependencies and synergies, I think that the more complex and the big target that we have is the TBO. Because the TBO is a concept that we want to provide the best route for the airlines.
Yeah.
Taking into account the restriction in the airspace and the weather, the wind, and so on. Then this is involved to provide this kind of level of efficiency for the airlines. There is below that, there is all the industry, CNS, automation, and so on. I think that artificial intelligence is a tool to increase the automation, and the automation is a tool to achieve the other target that is the TBO. But we need the automation that the people maybe are thinking to all these automatic machine to machine. There is nothing with the human in controlling. Will be the future, maybe 100 years later, or I don't know. But we need to go step by step. We need to take the advantage of the artificial intelligence and automation by step. First, developing tools to help the controller and the pilot to manage. Second one is giving other potential decision to a specific decision, controlling with the framework to take the decision, and finally machine to machine taking decision. No? But we need to go and take care and taking care, because this is the safety is the first here. Okay.
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Going in the same direction. This is a little bit the elephant in the room, this question. And we have been living it for many years, and things are accelerating thanks to the acceleration of artificial intelligence. So aviation started with automation, with manual piloting, then automation, and then artificial intelligence is coming. Automation, artificial intelligence are totally different, but they are very similar from one question, which is what is the role of the human being in that? ATM and aviation is a human-centric operation, and it will stay for a very, very long time, for sure. There was a long debate in the complete air traffic system network, which was organized by Council, about this question, and all the stakeholders worldwide, and it was really worldwide, came to the same conclusion. It is a human-centric, and it will stay human-centric, both as a controller or pilot. So automations, being artificial intelligence nurtured or purely classical automation, will stay a means to increase the level of safety and the level of efficiency of operation in a human-centric operated system. There is no doubt on that. Maybe in 200 years, we could envisage things differently, but at least a big part of the next decade with an S still relying on this principle. So automation is first, from a cockpit point of view, here to increase the safety, to make the aircraft even more resilient to all the disruptions and the failures that still may occur in the aircraft during the flight. And for the ATC control, it's more to bring automations to increase the efficiency and the resilience of the controllers to any disruptive events that may occur. Voilà, so in any case, it is a human-centric, but there is a lot of room to develop artificial intelligence and automations to still increase the efficiency of the system and the safety of the system.
Thank you. Agnes, you want to add something?
Yeah, I want to go back to TBO, because indeed it's quite in the, up in the list there, and as you mentioned, it's it builds on existing technologies, and I think collectively, especially here in Europe and EUROCONTROL, we want a safe, secure, and sustainable aviation, right? So TBO is also an additional way to fly more efficiently. That's also very important. And providing then as a manufacturer also value for our customers. So that's definitely something that is very, as a priority for us at Boeing. Among others, I could mention one SESAR project that we worked on recently, and started deploying it with one of our airlines customer. And so indeed, like the solutions are there. Again, we'll go back to, a bit in circle in our conversations, but because it is all linked, and as you pointed out, all are interdependencies. It's also how, the first mover will actually have the advantage, right? So do you need a regulatory framework, clear deadlines, clear timeline, and implementation dates? Or do you leave actually the investment risk to some of the, the stakeholders? And that's obviously, might differ depending on the regions as well. So we'll have to be cautious of how we move on this one.
Sure. Yeah, please.
No, maybe just because she and also he touched a lot of things about human. So of course it's a human centric, and we at ICAO actually we are putting a lot of efforts on that one. So one of the things that actually it's a capacity building. We have actually changed one of our bureaus became the capacity building and implementation. It was technical cooperation, but because the humans are very important, as you can see, and it will be playing still the big role, even with the automation, with the artificial intelligence. What we need to change, or we need to give this the training, the needed training for this human, or for how to deal with this automation, how to analyze the data, put the routine works maybe on the automation, and then of course the human will be playing the big role. So yes, we are playing a big role on that one and trying to provide these trainings for these humans.
Thank you for that. I think it's time, Colleen, that we open the questions
I
around the
agree.
room. Also, you can post a question on the Mentimeter if you want, for the colleagues who are not in the room, and we also open in the room. So please come on, let's ask the questions. No, don't keep anything in. The people are here to answer your questions. So I open the Q&A now. Okay, let's see who is going to be first. That's always the most difficult. We have one behind me, please. If you can say who you are and whom do you represent.
My name is Paul Rue. I'm from a company called Satorth. I just wanted to make a comment with regards to the interdependencies of automation, trajectory-based operations, as well as AI, of course, the spectrum, and of course, big data. I think they all work hand in hand, but one will always take preference, and that'll be big data. As many times as you can say 2 and 2 equals to 5, AI will pick it up as 5, and next minute we've got 5. So AI is in a long way off, I believe, but also I think automation is reliant on huge human interface and provision of data to build that technology going forward. I think I heard somewhere along the line in 10, 25 years, the singularity is far away, even though there are many people that want to say it's not. I believe it is, because big data and human interaction is always going to be the preference in making the final decision. So in terms of inter capacity of each of these functions, I believe one should start with big data, because the more data you have, the more accurate the data is, the better the technology is going to be at the end.
Thank you. Any comments from anyone?
Well, I think it leads right into the question that was raised, right? Integrated CNS, is it realistic? Oh, that was a big sigh up here, but
Yes.
If you take into account that there is one aircraft flying in an airspace that you need to control, you need several things. You need the aircraft need to know where he is, that there is the navigation, who is controlling, need to see where is the aircraft, there is the surveillance, and they need to communicate with them. Then there is CNS is an integrated solution. There is we cannot manage it by different ways. Then we need to, when we are analyzing, developing this concept, we need to take into account the three, the C and S.
So for you, it's realistic, you say?
Yes.
Okay. Any other views? Hug?
In terms of operations, the answer is obviously yes. These are the basis of ATM. So they are integrated in the operations. So yes, they are totally from the beginning, from scratch, from the day one. Technologically speaking, it's much more complex answer. Florian reminded it. We built the safety of ATM based on a segregation between the three letters. The segregation stopped at the time where, using the models, we were transmitting on-ship data computed on board for the ATMs to make dependent surveillance based on data computed on board. So the fact that there is a total link between navigation, surveillance, and com is not new. It started a long time ago with the models. At the beginning, it was totally segregated. Navigation systems on board were totally different than the one from communication and the one from surveillance. And by the way, there is something which is in the legacy of vocabulary, which is dependent and independent surveillance. The word is extremely simple. Independent surveillance means that the controller is using its own system in a total independent manner as what the aircraft are computing. This is typically the modest radar. Altitude being the key point, because to get the altitude, the controller needs to have the data as transmitted by the models, and then this is the altitude computed by the system. So there are interrelations between the three letters, obviously. We do a total mixture of the CNS. My vision is no. We still need, for safety purpose, to have somehow segregation between the three letters. And it is already a tricky thing to determine what is the border in mixing or not mixing the three letters. We are already in that. For instance, we talk about the LDAX. LDAX is primarily there for communication, and there are good ideas to use it as well for navigation. And then you say, oops, maybe a good idea or maybe not. And today, I think that the answer is not yet there. Is it a good idea or not? Not sure.
Yeah.
Voilà. So totally integrated, no. All of that, there is one. In fact, the common level playing field between the three letters is the top of the pyramid operation, and which is the foundation of the pyramid. All of that is using Spectrum. And we are back to the ETU question about protecting the Spectrum dedicated to safety of operation for ITC.
Okay, Raza, you want to add something?
Yeah, thank you. I think being a CNS engineer, first of all, and in 30 years in this industry, we are always, even in the name, we call CNS. So it's integrated within our hearts, within everything. But as we were saying, from a technology point of view, and I mentioned one of our task force that was formed, which is the integrated CNS. And this is one of the questions that always come up at the end or at the beginning of it. And now we are 3 or 4 years, we could not answer it in a very different, in a full way. We are integrating it, yes. Then there is a single point of failure that comes. So all these things, I think we are on the way on it. Okay, from a technology point of view, feasibility, it's there, but safety, and how the perception, how the acceptance, even if an aircraft without a pilot, all these things are coming, or all this coming when we discuss all these things together. So I think this is all together. We are still working on it, and I think we will reach to somewhere.
Okay, do we have any more questions in the room and online, please, colleagues? Tell us if you have. Do we have one there?
Hello, I'm Radek Zarwa from Honeywell. I don't know if question or remark on the second poll question. One thing I missed there was security. And it's kind of topic that spans across all ICNS. We knew for years, essentially from the very beginning, that GNSS is vulnerable. And we didn't do anything about it until now we see the vulnerability being exploited. Similarly, we know that communication, data link, and surveillance is also vulnerable. But we are doing research. Yes, we know what the solutions could be. But do you think there is anything, and I know economy is the main barrier, but is there anything that we could do to sort of be more preemptive than reactive on the other security vulnerabilities that we know about?
Oh, that's a good question.
Anyone want to tackle that, please?
I think since you touched about the communication and we are already working, yes, we saw that we are working on this. And actually the new links or the new communication links, now we are working and we have heard many times about the LDAX. One of the links which is secure, it's already the LDAX, that's from the design point of view. Also the new SATCOMs we have putting now, if you see the new standards, we are putting also the security part of it. The new IPS links or the ATN IPS links, we are also adding the security on it. So yes, we are taking actions on that one. Yeah, it will cost, and we have already informed or we have already highlighted that there will be a cost on that having that one, but we don't have the choice, I think. But we are working on that one also. Thank you.
Oh, please.
Oh, what a good and tricky question.
Yeah.
Well, back to GNSS, everything which is related to GNSS is a cybersecurity threat and weakness. So this is tackled today in a rather rush mode, I admit. What about the other threat? We are not so vocal in what we are doing on that topic. You can understand that it's not a good idea to be extremely vocal about what we are doing. So this being said, there are things which are already done. I talk about IRIS, which is a new data link communication pipe for air traffic network. It is totally cyber secure from scratch. So it was designed for that, and it is made for that, and it is living like this.
Absolutely.
So we totally rely and we are totally trust what we have been doing, including the standardizations to come with what is currently in operation with IRIS. Regarding other channels, because we are talking about radio frequencies, and here is coming your point, as well as everything which is ground, not to forget, which is IT. From a technology perspective, ATM is first IT. It's communication between big systems, having man at the extremities of each of those communication pipes. So obviously, on the ground, cybersecurity is considered, and I will let José talking about the service-oriented architecture and everything that will be built from scratch on security. And now, will it remain some threat? The answer is yes, we know. And then this will be a question of prioritization. We cannot tackle everything at the same time, and we cannot stop the systems to fly. So the first thing regarding cybersecurity is what was recommended by ICAO to all the states, which is, please, states, protect the spectrum. It's a duty. It's not only for the GNSS. It's for all the spectrum to protect it. We have not designed their frames and the systems to be operated in a total war system. We admit that there are some red spots, as I mentioned previously, but the states must be organized and play such as to make those red spots disappearing as soon as they are appearing. Obviously, in the meantime, we are changing each technology to be more cyber secure each time we introduce new things. I was talking about IRIS. Of course, if we quote about hyper-connected or LDAX, the same question will be there. We will not do that without ignoring cybersecurity, for sure. About the others, it's more tricky.
More tricky.
I'm reminded of the 1990 movie Die Hard 2, when they were able to spoof the landing system, right, and the airplane crashed. And I don't think during that time there was an engineer or a pilot or a controller that believed that could happen, right? Because they were all closed systems, right? The system on the aircraft was closed, the air traffic system was closed. And now, you get a little shiver up the back of your neck when you start thinking about it, that 25 years ago, it was, kind of out there, and today, less so.
Less so, yeah.
Good point.
Indeed. And now we have a question online on spectrum, of building up on what Hug just said. How we can make sure that the required spectrum is available for CNS services. And in our many interactions we had as CNS team in EUROCONTROL with the stakeholders in the last 2 years working on CNS evolution, and you hear people proposing different approach. And then there was one very extreme one that I've heard, which was building on this, connected to this story about investment and the money in the system to jump to the next technology level on CNS. And then the person said, actually, what is the most valuable thing we have? It's spectrum. We should auction the part of the aviation spectrum to pay for the system to like really jump to the, and then I was like, oh my God, you know, some people would totally go crazy on this one. But as an idea, it's an interesting one. So I don't know what if you want to address the question, you know, is it only about the protection or we need different ways in managing the spectrum? Do we really need to, you know, the big pressure is there from the telecoms industry. So how do we, you know, as aviation, how do we utilize it to the best maximum extent and then also protect it for our use?
Aviation has a spectrum allocated in the ITU. This is available. We have a spectrum, but we need to protect. But this is a problem that could apply to the mobile or TV or any kind services that are using the spectrum. How to protect? We need to use the ITU regulation, the state spectrum agencies that they care about to surveillance who is using this spectrum and he is using it in the correct way. We don't have other kind of thing. The spectrum is available here. Each one can use the spectrum. We need to monitorize who are using the spectrum, and if they are not using the spectrum in the correct policy, we need to do something.
Yeah.
But available is available because it's allocated in the ITU for CNS.
Yes. Anyone wants to, Raza, you want to?
Yeah, I just want to highlight that for the to just complement from ICAO point of view, we develop for each WRC, you know, this spectrum is under the ITU, and but we develop something called the ICAO position. In the ICAO position, in which we put all these spectrum bands, what do we need from these bands? And this position is actually approved by the council and then sent to all the states. And then only thing we can do at the ITU, we support that position so that we can still have the protection for this spectrum.
Okay, indeed. So I think we are coming close to our session. Colleen, do you think we are closer to the resolution of our problem on the challenges? I don't think so. Huh?
I was going to say, you didn't tell me you were going to ask me that question.
Yeah.
No, I didn't. But I think it's a great conversation, right? And that's what
is.
moved things forward. I mean, we've heard a lot this morning about collaboration, coordination, collaboration.
Absolutely.
You know, and I think the more we do this and talk about it and get together and try to find the solutions, the better off we'll be.
That's also my takeaway, you know, collaboration, working together. There are many moving parts. We can only address them if we work together. So that's, I don't know if you guys want any last very fast comments. Nikos is looking at me.
Thank you, and a great discussion at the CNS Cafe. I will take us away also prioritization, because we have a lot of challenges. We've tackled a lot of issues, but in order to put everything together, indeed, we need to put priorities. And because of my perspective, I also bring the political element that can push us as an industry actually to act faster when needed.
Thank you.
So I think from us, as we said, collaborative and everything. So ICAO, we are actually member states. So we need everybody to work together. We promote that. We want safe flights for all of us, safe, secure flights, and of course, efficient and economical and sustainable. So I think that's the key message from us.
From the industry. We are willing to invest in the new technology, but we need to be sure that this technology will be standardized and accommodate to the sector. Then for us we need to speed up the certification, the regulation and certification process to be sure that our investment in the industry will have benefit.
Colin, you said it, Predrag as well, collaboration and cooperation are really key. And I think these are the two words to conclude this panel, I think.
Well, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for coming, taking the time to speak to us. And thanks for all the participants. Thanks for your replies on our surveys. And I think it's a coffee break I give away to Nikos.
It was really an amazing CNS cafe. So I think this is something that you had your coffee, Predrag and Colin, but the rest of the people did not get the coffee.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely need to have a full
Thank
coffee.
you. Thanks for
That was
coming.
really an amazing session that you've done. Thank you very much, Colin. Thank you very much, Hugo. Thank you very much, Jose Luis, Raza, and Agnes. And now I invite actually the people to take the coffee break. There is also the tour of the exhibits. Can I just ask the people maybe just to listen a bit? There is the tour of the exhibits. Please go and see the exhibits, the different booths. And I just want to take the opportunity to say also a big thank to all our sponsors. You see here on our list, NASA, Airbus, Frequentis, Aerion, Viasat, Indra, Startical, Sanhilo, Honeywell, ESSP, and L3 Harris. So we thank you very much for your support and enjoy the coffee. Make sure that you are back at 11:20, please. Thank you. can you please take your seats? Yeah, absolutely. You don't. Can you please take up your seats? It is time to start the next session. So after the virtual CNS cafe that we had in the previous session, I think that at least the people that they are with us in Brussels, I hope you enjoyed a real coffee. And now actually we are getting ready to start our next plenary session. So for this session, I have the pleasure actually to invite Akim Baumann and Veronique Traverse. So Akim is the director for the policy director for the Airlines for Europe, and Veronique is the head of the ICNS unit in Eurocontrol, very appropriately to this conference. So Akim and Veronique, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Nikos. And good morning or good afternoon, depending which time zone you originally come from. Welcome to the second plenary of the ICNS of 2025. Just a bit reflecting on what was said before, a lot of challenges about harmonization, globalization, interoperability were described in the panels before. And I also remember Florian holding a plaidoyer for performance-based operations and technology and performance-based regulation. So I think these are already topics which this panel is looking to answer, basically looking at the good and bad and the ugly of how incentivization for early movers, respectively implementers of new technologies, have been done so far. We think when we discuss the panels here that today's technical and operational environment is a fast changing environment. We have heard about quantum flights, AI in the panel before. When we combine that with a single European market, this is the way forward. It presents an environment where customers, airlines, NSPs, airports, and others can actually select the technology best suited to achieve the functionality and the performance they desire. We will be looking in this panel what needs to be done to actually get this technology implemented. We think, and we will discuss that in more detail, that we need a harmonized corporate, harmonized and globalized approach to implementation to avoid a fragmentation and make sure that the benefits which we expect from new technologies actually can materialize. Having said that, we have a quite esteemed panel looking at this kind of incentivization from different angles. We have Jörg Piccolin, the advisor ATM for Lufthansa, and Manuel Garcia, the head of the communications of ENAIRE, from the operational side, so the front end of experience with CNS, specifically Jörg being a pilot for 35 years. So he really knows what happens when he pushes a button in an aircraft and what that means for CNS. On the other hand, we have Greg Sekone on the OEM side from Boeing, the technical fellow in airspace operational efficiency, where we can think about what to develop, what needs to be done, and a different way of incentivization is possibly needed. And then we have Lendina Smaya, a policy officer at DG Move, dealing with the regulatory aspects of incentivization in the CNS department. And last but not least, Anna von Grote, the DG of EUROCONTROL, where we also heard that standardization is necessary to make sure that we get a harmonized on a global basis implementation of standardization. So with not that much further ado, I would like to give the floor to Jörg Piccolin, and we have question and answer sessions after we had an initial statement of the 5-6 panelists, and we'll take it from there and hoping for a lot of interesting and challenging questions to the panelists. So do not shy away from picking their brains and making their challenges, your challenges, their challenges. Thank you very much. Jörg.
So thank you, Achim. Good morning, everyone. Just a few words before we start in the discussions from an, let's say, airline perspectives, where we see the issues that we have when we're talking about innovation and acceleration of innovation. They're basically from our perception when we talk about technological development in the ATM sphere, it is considered or perceived at least as being slow. And I think it's very valuable actually to look why we think it is actually slow. And one issue is, and Florian addressed this a little bit differently, but from an airline perspective, technology is mainly, not always, but mainly an enabler. You see, I give you a good example, that is data link. You see, putting a box into the cockpit and making them use for CPDLC is fine, but you have to use it. The box itself doesn't create any value for us. You see, and if you look, data link again is in CPDLC is a good example, because I remember when we installed the aircraft with data link, you see at the beginning, only the very tech-savvy co-pilots used actually CPDLC. Today, it's a second nature for us. We are all doing it. The controllers are doing it. The pilots are doing it. But it took years of training actually and convincing until we operationalized it. Still, no benefit. You need the third step, creating capacity with it. You see that what we are seeing within the ANSPs now, that as soon as data link or CPDLC doesn't function, it is an issue for capacity. So that is how long actually the cycle is from investing into technology until we really create a benefit. That makes it difficult. And that is one reason why the development is relatively so slow. The second one is disconnected investment cycles. We are all starting at different levels of maturity. Every ANSP is different. Every airline is different. You see, if we make an investment decision today, a forward fit investment decision as an airline, we are stuck for 20, 25 years with this technology if we are not running through a retrofit program, which is usually more expensive. So it is so important for us actually to make the right decision when we're buying aircraft and fit it with the right technology, you see. And the third one is that, and we were talking about this as well, collaboration, that benefits are usually only realized if all players invest. A good example, which we had in the panel beforehand, is GBus. We are talking since years, I don't know, perhaps even decades about GBus. You see, it is the airlines, it is the ANSPs, it is the airport, it's the manufacturers, it's the OEM. And everyone is pointing to the other. There we have the chicken and egg problem that we are facing. Despite the fact that we have so many, let's say, collaboration efforts with the GBus Alliance, with EG, etc., that is really difficult and postpones decisions for investment. So what to do, and I want to give you a quick example. Again, TBO, it was mentioned very often this morning. There is a mandate for ADAC EPP starting 28 forward fit. At Lufthansa, we actually are ordering or ordered actually 60 Airbus A320 before 28. There is no need for us to invest in ADAC EPP at this point of time, according to the mandate. If we are not doing it, these 60 aircraft, and that's a huge sum, is flying without ADAC EPP for the next 20, 25 years. So how can we actually accelerate if we have such a fragmented approach? So if I would have gone to the executive board and say, well, I need money for ADAC EPP, I wouldn't have got anything because it's not a business case in itself. You see, that is the issue. So what we did is within our company, you see, we brought the bigger picture and said, why are we doing ADAC EPP? ADAC EPP for us itself is no need, but in the bigger picture, together with FFIs, it's the prerequisite for TBO. And we believe very strongly that TBO could be actually a game changer for sustainability, for creating efficiency, et cetera, et cetera. So we took the, let's say, the entrepreneurial courage to invest before the mandate. And that's what I'm applying for, actually. I think we have to break all the hindrances that I mentioned on the first slide. We have to have some kind of entrepreneurial courage to speed up the investment into technology. Thank you.
Thank you, Jörg. Now we have the second operational user, Miguel, please.
Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm going to try to give the perspective, the ESP perspective, when we are talking about how to try to incentive or how to try to accelerate the implementation of the new CNS strategies. But not only is a question for me, it's a question of how to implement these new technologies, but also it's a question of how to coordinate in order that we can implement this kind of new technologies in an harmonized way. Because in order to take all the advantages for these new technologies or these new strategies or CNS systems, if different aeronautical stakeholders we are implementing in different ways or on a different time frame, then we are not going to take the maximum benefit of that. That is the reason why I think that we have to be working on these aspects. Maybe what is the situation today? Maybe we have to recognize that in different ICAO regions, we have different programs, different CNS regional plans that has been aligned with, in principle, with the GAMP, with the Global Air Navigation Plan, in order to establish some, what we can consider strategic deployment objectives. Okay, and these strategic deployment objectives wants to be implemented in order to be able to provide or to increase or to improve some concepts, as for example, safety and security, that everybody is perfectly aware about that, but not forgetting about the capacity, more and more important, the resilience, because we have to look for the continuity of our business and the provision of our CNS services in a safe way. And I think that we have to think in this resilience. But recognizing also that now the new technological improvements give us the possibility to implement more efficient and flexible service delivery models. It's not, now we are moving from a very static framework where we have the NSP, the airlines, or the NSP providing with all our resources on our own. To be able to implement other services could be more flexible, that could be outsourced in some part of them. I'm going to talk about this a little later, okay? But this clear gives us a very clear opportunity to do so. But in order to be able to implement this more flexible service deliveries strategies, we need, of course, not forget about the standardization. We need to use these standard platforms and open interfaces to assure interoperability, because this is going to be the best way in which we can have these different approaches and the different aeronautical stakeholders to be able to implement these kind of strategies. Also, it is a fact that more and more we are thinking to decouple what we consider the infrastructure layer from the service layer. Instead of having a single organization operating and maintaining the different equipments and also providing the operational service, now we can decouple these two layers and maybe to have some organizations more focused in the infrastructure and other organizations more focused in which we can consider the delivery of services in order to facilitate the implementation of new operational concepts. No? But what is in my opinion, one of our major challenge or major difficulties is that we are a lot of different aeronautical stakeholders. We are NSPs, airlines, airports, military, avionics manufacturers, CNS systems manufacturers, and we are implementing our strategies that not always could be exactly be completely aligned. Why? Because really we have different needs, different budgets, different priorities. But if we are not implementing in an organized way, is where we are not going to be able to take all these benefits. Then I'm thinking in the goal of this panel that we are talking about how to try to incentive the implementation of this new CNS strategy. Everybody clearly thinks about, okay, you can have some financial fundings. That's clear. If you have some financial fundings, as for example, in Europe, traditionally we have had with SESAR and CNEA projects where we can fund the research or we can fund even the early implementations. Okay, that's clear, no? And also maybe to have some operational benefits, no, for the airlines or for the NSPs that are early implementers, no, of these new technologies. Then I think that this is something that everybody has in mind when we are going to implement or we are going to try to incentive this implementation. But I would like to focus the attention on the importance for this coordination that I was mentioning before. If we are not implementing at the same time in an homogeneous way, improving the coordination between different aeronautical stakeholders, and this is the difficulty, we are not going to take all the benefits that potentially we could have. For me, it's important that in each region, we are developing or we are having some organizations that are monitoring the implementation of this CNS strategy in order that they try to identify potential misalignments between different aeronautical stakeholders in the implementation of this strategy, and to identify very quickly and to be able to react and to propose some countermeasures to align again the strategies or the roadmaps of each of these aeronautical stakeholders. For example, in Europe, we have the concept of the program manager, the infrastructure manager, SDM, that we are working together. It is true that in Europe it's a relative complex scenario because we are a lot of countries, and really maybe we have been forced to do that. But this is the only way that I see how to promote this. Because if not all the aeronautical stakeholders are coordinating very closely between them and implementing at the same time this homogeneous, then we are not going to take these benefits. Maybe finally to try to think about maybe what else to highlight, no? In the previous panel also was commented, but the concept of the standardization is essential. We are having now standardization, but we have to promote this. And in this new flexible service delivery model, where different organizations could be coming now to provide some part of the services, I think that also we need to promote any kind of practical criterion for certification in order that the different organizations could be certified in the provision of one or another CNS services in a more pragmatic way, and trying to reduce the potential administrative times in order that these organizations could be certified. And finally, to comment one issue or one challenge that we have in space is the fact that we have more and more technology, and it's very, very quite difficult to have all our assets, our people well trained in the provision of these services. Then it's something that I think that is going to be unavoidable, that we need to subcontract or to outsource some of these services. Then we have to look for a balanced solution of how to try to accommodate the provision of some services from external organizations with the responsibility that our assets in space have today. And for me, this is a challenge because this is something that we need to think about in order to be able to implement this. For example, I'm thinking in security. Security is something very, very dynamic. It's practically impossible to have very well-trained everybody, all the assets in the most security aspects and and really clearly some parts of the service needs to be subcontracted. The challenge is how to not to lose the responsibility of the service provided finally by the INSP in this case with the asset, but being able to subcontract the services to external services. Okay, and that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Miguel. Now we move from the user point to those who do the standardizations. Anna, please.
To add, my work here is done, right? Hearing about all the, listening to the previous panel, listening to my fellow speakers in my panel here, I think I have great ambassadors here. If I think back to the very first ICNS conference I attended many years ago, we had to explain what EUROCONTROL and RTCA were doing, why we need standards. I think that has changed a lot, and I think this is great. It's real pleasure to see this awareness and this understanding having gotten here. So what can I add? I think the importance of standards and the need for them has in the meantime made its way. But what we really need to do, and we heard a little bit in the previous panel, we heard just a little bit now as well, is we need to maybe get even better at coordinating what we need, setting priorities and aligning our priorities. I think we've heard it very well. I think José Luis, you mentioned it in your closing statement. You need certainty. You need to understand when we're ready, when the industry as a whole is ready to deploy certain things. And I think this is where we need to, or where we can still improve, where we can get better, is aligning our priorities, aligning your priorities to the global industry needs and the timelines that go with that. And those timelines come to a certain degree from R&D programs. We have the European ATM Master Plan, obviously, with SESAR. We have plans similar in Next Gen. We have CARETS and other R&D programs, which give us a little bit of this time frame and those timelines. We have the regulators. I think, again, José Luis mentioned, we need to maybe get quicker in that, and again, for that we need to align. We need to talk earlier together about what we need, by when we need it, so that we can give in the end a complete package to the industry, to the community, to be able to deploy certain things. And only if we talk early enough, we can accelerate and get better at this. And then we have the ICAO level. Raza mentioned several initiatives that are going on. Obviously, there's the GAMP and the GASP. The ICNSS task force, I think, is one step where we can really get this alignment and understand each other a little bit better for the complementarity. But this is, I think, something very important. So how do we do that? How do we align our different strategic plans? We have obviously mentioned the GAMP and the GASP. We have on the European level, we have the EPAS, obviously, and the ATM Master Plan. But we in EUROCONTROL, we take those plans very seriously, and we try to align our technical work program to those plans so that we understand what technology is expected to become mature at what timeline, and that we understand when we need to start the standardization activity in this. And this, for the first time this year, the TAC, our Technical Advisory Committee, has actually mapped the TWP to the SESAR Master Plan, to the ATM Master Plan, so that we have this alignment starting at that level already. This is really important, innovation and R&D, new needs, solutions, technologies. We have, in the meantime here, what is quite often referred to as the innovation pipeline, this really integrated approach. And we need to understand, and we need to find this sweet spot of when a technology is becoming mature enough so that we can start the standardization and be ready at the point that we can support the industry to deploy it. We heard quite often already international harmonization, global interoperability. We need the interfaces. We shouldn't have national, regional standards, but we really look for this global applicability of the standards we develop. For that, we do over 60% of our standardization activities is already joined with our partner organizations in RTCA SAE. We're working very closely with ICAO to achieve this and really have this worldwide recognition and application. In Europe, we have a body that is going even a step further, which is our European ATM Standards Coordination Group, this fancy EASCG, and there's another one for drones and cybersecurity, but specifically on the ATM side, this is a really important body because it brings together not only us as standardization organizations, but the industry and other standardization organizations like EUROCONTROL. Nikos and his unit are very much involved in that, so that we can really ensure the complementarity. I think none of us, and especially looking at our members, none of you has resources to spare, extra money to spend on certain activities. We're all under pressure, whether it's for travel costs, whether it's for just participation somewhere. And I think this is really important that we make sure that we use the resources that we have in an efficient way, and in a way that is effective in the end, so that we have this mutual understanding and common process really, so that we lead to common success, and in the end through that accelerate the deployment through a commonly agreed framework and priorities that will guide us. And I will stop here, and I'm happy to take any questions later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna, for bringing us back to the ground from our high flight levels. And now we do the other end of CNS with Greg. Thank you.
Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm going to talk a bit about this in the context of TBO, because I think that Jörg said very well, we're not putting on technology just for technology's sake. We really need to be getting some kind of benefit, or else we're just spending money for no reason. So I'm going to talk about TBO. Is it that one? Yep. So I think we've heard these points from the other panel, the earlier panel, and from my colleagues as well, that there are some prerequisites to even get to a line deployment. And as Anna just said, if we don't have harmonized standards and where equipment is not harmonized, we don't have a chance. So we absolutely have to be harmonized. We're trying to get to the same spot. We may not be doing it at the same time, but we need to get to the same place, or else we're going to be sunk. The transition is also going to be critical. And we've heard from Manuel and from the previous panel as well. There are differing ground deployment schedules. They're never going to match. The investments are going to be different. There are architectural challenges, both on the air and the ground, for adding new equipment. The equipment adoption rate is going to be different. How do you handle mixed fleets? All these things need to be considered for transition. There's no big bang to get to a new technology. And then finally, what's I think from one of the most important parts is the benefits case. We need to have the return on investment clear, and that's done through R&D. So I'm glad that we're continuing R&D both in Europe and in the US and other places, because that's absolutely essential to continue to develop the requirements for how are you going to use this technology and how are you going to apply it to get that benefit. And then finally, you need to track the benefits and see how it's working and what needs to be changed, how is it going to be tweaked. I want to talk a bit about the FAA Datacom program. For those that have been around as long as I have, that's not the first Datacom program the FAA has done. They've tried it a couple of times, but this one is working and continuing to thrive, even with challenges of things like COVID. And so what was different about this time? Well, I think that the collaborative environment they use for respective airline investments, for taking airline, airframer, avionics manufacturers, comm providers, so all those different stakeholders were able to have input into a ranked order of services. And one of the services that they came out with first was departure clearance. And there were a number of significant aspects of departure clearance that really help things. One is it's exploiting the integrated nature of CPDLC. So you're taking a complex clearance and loading it with a single button push into the flight management system. And that's a key part of TBO for future, and that's starting to be used and has been used for a long time now in the US. When the FAA started that, they wanted to try and incentivize to have 2,400 aircraft equipped. And now at the latest Datacom integration team meeting, I think it was January, there are more than 11,800 aircraft equipped for departure clearance with CPDLC. And that's without a mandate. So the airlines are seeing the benefit from this. They're saying, okay, I can see how this can help. And that helps that voluntary deployment, which then sets up for future services for en route. And that's what the FAA is doing now. In the meantime, they can further refine the concept of operations and start doing trials and start to identify where are gaps in the standards. And of course, the FAA started with FANS 1, and we know that we're all trying to get to baseline 2. That's the long-term vision for the FAA and of course for Europe. But how do we get there? And how do we use these new capabilities? And you gain experience by first using what you have. And so if you really are maximizing the existing equipage, that helps to preserve the airline investment. And also you learn, and the more things that you learn now, the more risk you retire in the future. And that also helps to bridge some of the capability gaps. And we heard earlier about some of the upcoming comm systems and hyper-connected. If we are able to leverage that as well and leverage the EFB and connected aircraft concepts, that helps to bridge that gap to baseline 2. And we also learn from that. So really the main takeaway is the benefits are what drives things. And it's good to have early adopters and pioneers like Jürg was saying, those are absolutely necessary. But if you have a clear benefits case, that really helps for the airlines and for all the stakeholders to be able to move towards that. Right. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg, for the first good example, how things can be working. So that's a good point for discussion, I think, later on. And now, Lendina, for the regulatory view.
Everyone, it's still morning. How do relate to this from the European Commission and policy perspective to the CNS topic? I will try to give our point of view and our perspective on the discussions that we have so far. So for us, everything starts in the Single European Sky Framework. You know, the European airspace, it's not huge and it's shared between many member states. So our bigger high-level objective was to address defragmentation, to reduce defragmentation and improve airspace optimization. Soon, we realized that, of course, an enabler to achieve this is the CNS systems, and that's where the first interoperability requirements, regulations, came into force from the Commission side in order to ensure a level playing field of different CNS technologies between member states, with airspace users, etc. These interoperability regulations now are part of the EASA regulatory framework, because in the meantime, EASA gained competence and scope in order to address all CNS technically related topics. Then in the European Sky Framework, we have another important provision, which is called common projects. The common projects, it is a provision that allows us to support ATM modernization. How? We all know that the planning tool in order to modernize ATM in Europe is the ATM Master Plan. And in the ATM Master Plans for solutions that have a European network-wide impact and that also are mature enough and need synchronized and timely deployment, as we already mentioned in this forum, we use the common project regulation in order to ensure that on air and on the ground technologies are deployed at the same time, and so we can retrieve the operational benefits. Another instrument that we have in the Single European Sky Framework, it's the performance and charging scheme. And how that relates to CNS? It relates because the NASPs can have criteria for eligibility and they can claim CNS upgrade costs. And also the performance and charging scheme encourages infrastructure rationalization and efficiency, because we are all talking today about new technologies and how to address the different challenges that we have had, but we should keep in mind that when we put something new, we also need to remove something, because we cannot keep adding technologies. And in this respect, the performance and charging scheme addresses some of these aspects, that we optimize our infrastructure, but in a cost-efficient way. Now, the Single European Sky Framework last year in December had a major upgrade. It's the SES2 Plus regulatory package, which aims, given the last 20 years, let's say recent developments, aim to improve our take on improving airspace optimization and efficiency. And in the SES2 Plus, we have more language on outcome-based charging mechanisms, not just cost recovery. We support dynamic price models in order to manage demand and incentivize a better performance. And also there is language in the SES2 Plus that allows that CNS investments also are connected to the SESAR ATM master plan technologies and deployment as prescribed there. We have not just put mandates in order to encourage change, but we have also on the other side tried from our perspective to support the deployment of what we believe should be put in place. And we have supported deployment already in the definition phase through our contribution to the SESAR program, which we believe, as I already said, it's a planning tour for the ATM modernization, and that gives this roadmap to the industry, to the NASPs of where we want to go in terms of operational improvements and the underlying technologies that goes with that. The SESAR ATM master plan, as already mentioned, has several SESAR deployment objectives, and one of them is DO9. It's about CNS optimization, rationalization. There is already there an initial skeleton of a framework of where we want to go. Then we have also supported the SESAR deployment, the CP1 through the SESAR Deployment Manager, which has in its scope the role to coordinate the deployment of the CP1 technologies. The CP1 technologies include 6 ATM functionalities, and one of them is initial trajectory-based operations that was managed, mentioned several times this morning. And an important enabler of that in CNS is the air-ground connectivity. Another opportunity to support deployment is CEF funding and digital sky demonstrator calls. Through these calls, NASPs, airlines can apply for funding in order to share the cost for major infrastructure investments. Only last year, in 2024, there were 2 projects related. One is a clean ATM and one is green CNS that were financed by CEF funding. And it's overall, it's more than 130 million, the overall budget. And these both projects included several stakeholders from the ground and from the air. So it's an important mechanism that we have, that we encourage airspace users and NASPs to use for major investments in the CNS area. Of course, we recognize the role of standardization. We support a lot EUROCAE. We support the work of EUROCONTROL, EASA, all European bodies, and also other standardization organizations in the area of CNS standardization and certification. And last but not least, it's the CNS Program Manager. The CNS Program Manager was mentioned this morning by Raul. This function, this task was developed in the frame of the CNS Advisory Group in the Commission, that then assigned this role of coordinating CNS deployment and optimization, what we call the CNS evolution plan in Europe, to the EUROCONTROL NM as a task to perform. This task has not only technical aspects, but has also one of the recommendations that we have put to the CNS Program Manager. It's to help us find different incentive mechanisms that can be used, for example, to combine best equipped, best performing aircraft with different funding opportunities, with different like European Investment Bank funding, CEF funding, and other different funding possibilities. So we will look forward, and we will, of course, consider and consultate with our member states in the frame of the Single European Sky Committee the different possible incentivization mechanisms that will come out of the CNS program manager in this aspect. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindina, for rounding up and closing this incentivization loop with the regulatory
perspective. So I think we have a lot of input into the discussion, and I'll keep quiet for the next time. And Veronique.
Thank you, Akim. So the floor is open for any question you may have. And if you are not raising the hand, we will start to ask some questions for you. It's only a 15-minute slot, so be quick. Yes?
You have to use a mic. You have to use a mic also for the people.
Thank you very much for the presentations. Very interesting. My name is Raluca Angelaki. I work at NATO headquarters here in Brussels. So maybe my question would be more dedicated to the civil military aspect. We talked about the CNS and CNS integration, but I believe both aspects are very important to take into account in the same time. NATO and EUROCONTROL have a great collaboration in this aspect. But my question would be, how do you see the future, the near future challenges in CNS integration, especially when we're talking about the level of equipage and the use of dual-use aerodromes? Thank you.
Manuel? It was very difficult to hear you, sorry. So we are trying to catch up. Could you maybe rephrase it and speak closer to the mic? Sorry.
Thank you very much. No, so my question was more related to the civil military aspect. I believe that the CNS integration at this point in time, it's a very important aspect. So both sides need to be taken into account in the same time, especially when we're talking about mission effectiveness and having, real-time air picture, information exchange, and so on and so forth. And I was just saying that NATO and EUROCONTROL have a very good collaboration in that sense. Now my question, it's more linked to the near future challenges. How would you see the, let's say, main things to look into in this aspect when we're talking both on level of equipage, both on air and on ground, and also when we're talking about the use of dual-use aerodromes? Thank you.
Yeah, maybe the question is not really related to our panel, or at least this was not the intent, but maybe Predrag, as a CNSPM, you can take it.
Yes, maybe I can shed some light. Indeed, the dual use of infrastructure is something that we have been discussing together with the EDA colleagues. Also, NATO was involved, and of course, our military CNC colleagues. You've heard our DG saying that we have the civil military nature as EUROCONTROL. So the work that we are doing as CNSPM, we fully take into account the civil military dimension. And in this, indeed, as you mentioned, in this story, now we are living in a very particular moment in the geopolitical relations, and these civil military aspects are being even more important. And then just to connect with the panel that is working here, the dual use of infrastructure and the financing of that infrastructure is something that we are actively looking into. We now see a lot of funds appearing for Rearm Europe, for the common sustainability fund that has a civil military nature. Maybe there are opportunities there that can help the community to maybe fund some of the CNS infrastructure that are both for military and civil use. So we are really actively working on this together with EDA and together with our CMC colleagues and you guys in NATO. I have presented to NEASCOG meeting to address the security, mission effectiveness, all these things, to make sure that the colleagues understand that. So I think we have a very good link with this, and we will also explore this other part, which is financing, because now in the past it was always a big question. I open it here transparently. The big question was what is really needed of the ground infrastructure for the defense and what is needed for the commercial operations of the airlines. And Jose Luis also mentioned from Indra, okay, all these radars on the ground. I think one of the reasons why we still have them all over the place, and maybe a bit too much than we need, is one of the reasons is defense and the military aspect. So I think we need to sit together to see what is really needed going forward in the future and how we finance that, because we don't also want to burden the airline colleagues with unnecessary costs that they do not use. So I think it's a very complex issue, and we are on top of it. If you want to get engaged with us, please let me know, and then we can discuss offline. Thanks.
Maybe to joke a bit, you see what happens when you ask Predrag. So you take all the time of the panel. So going back to the panel.
Yes, please.
Yes, thank you very much. Because of the previous question, let me ask a little bit unusual. Here, there was mentioned a European Drone Strategy 2.0, which introduced a new term in our world, which is called integrated CNS. And variety of discussions with different experts and groups came or yield us to a conclusion that no one understands the meaning of this term. And I would like to ask for a clarification whenever possible what we're speaking about. Is that so that earlier these three different technologies, they were provisioned through different technological sets, and now mostly provisioned through terrestrial mobile networks, not speaking of GNSS? Or is that so that they are a little bit better integrated to modern aviation, or this new entrants that are advanced air mobility? Or is that relevant to the civil-military collaboration that we just discussed? If someone would please highlight, what do you think about what is that integrated CNS? Thank you very much.
Thank you for the question. It's not an easy one, but maybe the only guy who could answer it's Nikos.
So maybe what we need to do is that we really to try to focus. So for me, that's a very good question. And maybe we can try to have it as a specific panel session for the next ICNS. So what I would like now to do is really to try to focus. Maybe the question can be actually if you think that integrated CNSs can play a role in the incentivization. But maybe we need really to focus, I would suggest, that on the focus of the incentivization and how to accelerate the deployment. And this is where I believe actually integrated CNS can play a role, but we take your point, and we're going to have maybe a session on ICNS and what does it mean for the next session. There was many questions on that, so I'll let back.
Yeah, maybe just a joke, but I think if CNS is integrated, it will be a very expensive one. So we need to dig further into the incentivization scheme possible to deploy it. Another question? Yes, please.
Once again, Paul Roux, SATORT. This question is really directed to you, but I think maybe the panel can add some insight into it. When you make a decision to purchase equipment that's going to last you beyond 25 years, I'm unfortunately speaking from two hats, one from a safety regulation perspective and the other from a business as a small OEM manufacturer on avionics. But when you make that decision, what is that decision based on? Because, and then how do you integrate it with all the rules and regulations that are particular to right now? For example, the 1st of January this year, the GADS compliance integration, also EASA CAT-GEN MPA 210 integration. How do you make that call going forward and then still get the funding from it from your directors and your board? Thank you.
Well, thank you. If I understood it correctly, and as I said, the decision when we are talking about how to equip an aircraft, we have to take the decision when we are placing our buy orders for the aircraft. Everything else is retrofit. There are always initiatives or sometimes mandates actually to retrofit an aircraft for security or safety reasons or whatsoever, which we obviously comply with. But when we're discussing about equipping an aircraft in a forward fit way, we need some kind of a business case. because we have to calculate it and we have to justify why do we actually tick the box when we buy an aircraft. You see, I think that is the important point. And what I mentioned in the 5 minutes that I spoke is, I think we need a bit more than a business case. I think we need a big understanding, why are we doing it and what kind of perhaps important piece a certain technology is playing when we are talking about developing the European ATM system. And ADEC EPP, we heard it the whole morning, how important it is actually to have this communication between the aircraft and the ground. So for me personally, it goes beyond the business case. And that's why we took the decision, because we said it is such an integral piece when we want to come to TVO. That's why we took the decision, let's say, beyond the business case as well.
Thanks. Yeah, please.
Okay, so this is Sarek Zaruba from Honeywell again, and I have a question for Greg actually. Because you said something which sounds really interesting, that you said, if I get it right, that departure clearance got deployed without direct financial incentives, without a mandate. So I assume there must have been some very easy to understand and very obvious operational benefit, operational incentive. And that sounds like a lesson. There must be some really good lesson to be learned from that, because that's what we would love to see on the other occasions as well, right? So what was the case, and can maybe somebody else also elaborate, like, is it maybe transferable to TBO or some other concepts?
Yeah, thanks, Radek. That's a good question. So the departure clearance, what the big benefit is, it's one of those services that solves the chicken and the egg problem. Because if you equip, you get the benefit. And if you don't equip, you get some benefit because the other airplanes are leaving ahead of you. And it starts to move towards TBO with the loadable CPDLC clearances. And it was enough of a value to the airlines that they were voluntarily equipping after the initial incentivization period was over. And so not all services are going to be like that, for sure. But for ones like that, that's a very good incentive, and that helps the airline say, I can see with my business case, I'm also equipping for the future for en-route services that may be harder to justify on their own. And that's how you get that momentum started. And then you can, from that, you can see, where do we go next, which services? And that's the FAA services roadmap that goes all the way out to baseline 2. So I think looking for those types of opportunities, those types of services, the ones that solve the chicken and the egg problem, and that also have applicability for future equipage, is really what we should be looking for. And it's not easy, or else we all would have done it by now. But that's the main usage.
Okay, so if I get it right, so you're saying that the benefit was that when the airlines got equipped with departure clearance, they got preferential treatment, so they get better time slots essentially.
Only on an airport reconfiguration. So the general benefit is you get a loadable clearance that can reduce some of the flight crew workload. If the airport gets reconfigured, those that have the departure clearance capability get their new route, which they can button load, while someone that doesn't have it is going on the RT with a controller reading back. So it's not just preferential treatment for everyday operations. It makes it easier on the flight crew for the workload. But when there is a weather incident, it really does, that's when the real benefit comes through.
Yeah, thanks. So first step of automation. Hugues?
Well, I think we are in the famous debate about the best equipped, best served, which is not new at all. So I think it could be a good way for the different institutions to take it seriously about best equipped, best served in the sense of operational service. So this is where we rely on the controller himself. And we know that it is extremely difficult because the first job of the controller is safety. We know that. And the second one, which is, what about the en-route navigation charges? Can we imagine things that airlines are incentivized about equipping their aircraft with the latest required technologies, having a discount on the en-route navigation charges?
Right. I totally agree with you. We are at best equipped, best served. You see, and best equipped, best served is for me just one of the possibilities how to incentivize a business case that is perhaps marginal or not really 100% positive. You see, in this case, best equipped, best served leads to a positive business case. You see, the same counts for financial funding. You see, incentivizing stronger early movers, for example, could actually start to create this avalanche that others are going to equip. You see, I think there are a lot of possibility when you talk about route charges. There's another possibility actually just to create an incentive mechanism that actually prefers those who start earlier. You see, that's exactly what happens there when we're talking about BEPS, and BEPS is nothing else like that. So I fully agree with you here.
Landina, you want to comment?
Yes, if I can add a bit of perspective to this discussion. I think it's important that we explore this potential new incentivization mechanisms. Indeed, in the CES2 Plus regulatory package, there is clearly identified the need that the Commission does a study on potential modulation of charges, so that we are based more on outcome, on benefits that we can, and how to then define mechanisms in the implementing acts of the CES2 Plus regulation to incentivize in this way maybe NASPs who do the first step forward through the restructuring costs or other means. But definitely there is room for us to work on that, and it is already foreseen that a study on modulation of charges be performed.
Yes, so.
Thanks, Veronica. In fact, I don't have a question. I'd like to respond to the question that Vadim asked earlier about the concept of integrated CNS in drones and in EU Drone Strategy 2.0. How long have you got, Vadim? It will take time, but I think what they mean in the EU Drone Strategy 2.0 with ICNS is that they're looking at the future when we have an integrated airspace with all aircraft, all the airspace users together, flying in an integrated manner, and they're advising in that strategy to use the existing CNS in ATM, but also the new technologies that SESAR program will design to be integrated together to create that integrated CNS. So it will be integrated in terms of ATM and the full services that U-Space will provide. That was the direction given in the EU drone strategy, and SESAR is the mechanism to make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Manish, for the clarification. Victor, the last question is for you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Victor Jagasits from EUROCONTROL Maastricht UAC. My question would be, what is the preferred way of incentivizing the ground implementers for B2 implementation? Because we are trying to incentivize all the airborne implementers, providing the business cases that are coming from Maastricht. You know that we operate B2 services for a couple of years now, and we're happy to share all the results and all the good business case support. But we don't really see that the ground implementers, so especially the other centers, are very much incentivized to join this effort. And they're also very limited in options because they have to go to the manufacturers of their systems who will give them a time slot of 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And then even though if you want to implement it early, you're constrained by those things. And the money is, of course, another big subject, because you have to, in the meantime, maintain your old system, implement new features, comply with new rules and new regulations and new certification requirements. So B2 is really coming at, okay, let's be ready for the mandate. And that shouldn't be the way on the ground. And I'm fully sharing the concerns of Jörg and what Hugh said, that yes, we need more deployment across, but doesn't seem to be very much supported, at least from where I stand. Thank you.
So I personally, you see, from an airline perspective, and when I say about how to incentivize, I don't necessarily mean how to incentivize airlines. You see, I mean how to incentivize the whole system and all the players, actually, because there's no point when airlines are equipping the aircraft, but on the ground nothing happens. because we need all, you see, and that's what I said in the third example when we're talking about G-Bus. It's a perfect example where we don't move along, we don't come to the same conclusions, you see, and we don't have an, let's say, an incentive system, and we discussed this very intensely last year when it was in the CP program. You see how difficult it is for all the players actually to be in a situation that they say, now we move forward. So the incentive system shouldn't be focused on different players in the industry, but rather in, let's say, a technology or a use case. So how do we have to incentivize this use case or technology so we can create the benefits for all of them? Sometimes it might be more on the airline side, it might be more on the ANSP side, whatsoever. But we have to see this in a total, but that's my opinion.
Manuel, you want to comment?
Yes. No, it's only to comment that really we have our CNS regional plans and that are coordinated, for example, in the case of Europe, by the infrastructure manager and by the SDM. And there's several SESAR projects that has been funded by the different European funds. And also it is promoted the early implementation. I think that this is in the right position. Maybe what we are thinking about is that maybe we are moving relatively slowly. And I was commenting about the potential new service delivery models in which there could be some organizations that could be acting as CNS service providers, not only pure in space, but in collaboration also with the industry. And that's the reason why I was commenting that now more and more some pan-European services are appearing with the corresponding certification process, of course, in order to provide these CNS services. Then we are really changing the model from a very clearly state-oriented approach to more a pan-European approach. And I think that this is going to be more efficient, more flexible. There's already existing pan-European services, and I think that we are in the right way. Maybe moving a little slowly. Maybe we have to try to accelerate this one. There's different initiatives, for example, for the implementation of pan-European data link services that now we are in the way to deliver. No? Then I think that we have to look for these new models that could accelerate the process, and of course going on with the corresponding European fundings that already exist, but we can maybe to try to promote a little more. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Manuel. So I think I will close the question session and I will ask our panelists about your final thoughts. To start with you, Jörg, maybe one sentences.
No. One sentence? Okay.
Few words.
It's a very long sentence. No, I think, and perhaps I think it summarizes quite well what we discussed actually. I think 3 points for me or for us and based on the discussion that we have are important. I think we need to have some entrepreneurial courage to unlock the deadlock we are sometimes in. You see, we're running here in circles. Second one is, and I think that's essential what you mentioned as well, fast deployment to create bottom line effects. You see, so we see and get example that things are really working. You see, that is a big accelerator. And the third one is we have an incentive system and elements within the incentive system that actually rewards those early movers. Doesn't matter if it's about chartered, about BEPS or whatsoever, what possibilities there are. But those would be my 3 important points actually to accelerate.
Thanks. Manuel?
Thank you. Maybe only in addition to the logic, financial fundings and operational benefits that we have been discussing, I think that really to have the maximum benefit of all these kind of initiatives is for me to focus is the coordination between the aeronautical stakeholders to implement in an homogeneous way. And I think that it is needed further coordination in order to align completely our strategies, the time frame of our strategies, and to be able to try to monitor potential deviations in order that we could react very quickly in order to align our strategies. There's already initiatives that exist in different regions, but I think that we need to promote more. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Manuel.
Yes, thank you. And just I couldn't agree more with what you said, Manuel. And I think this alignment of the strategies is really important, and the earlier identification and agreement on the priorities and where we want to go is important, because in the end, as I said in my opening remarks, none of us has any money to spare on duplicate activities, but we need to make so we as organizations, as standardization organizations, in collaboration with EASA, with the Commission, we do our part to make sure that we don't duplicate, that we use the resources that we have at our disposal in the working groups in the best manner possible. But in the end, I'm a lawyer. No one lets me close to any technical requirements, and that's probably a good decision. But we need all of you to come into the working groups and to write the standards, because this will be the really important. And then and only then we will be able to accelerate and make the standards available in a timely fashion that we can offer a complementary and comprehensive package that allows deployment.
Thank you, Anna. Greg?
Yeah, I think what Jörg said, just to enable that kind of thinking, there needs to be the research and development that continues on. And that's what identifies those operational use cases on how data will be applied, and not to focus just on equipage for equipage sake, but what is the benefit that's going to be received from the equipage, and how do you measure it, and then how do you build upon that to get to that harmonized end state. Thank you.
Thank you.
From our perspective, I think we have a lot of challenges ahead. It's a capacity increasing in the future. We have environment. We need to make air transport environmental friendly and sustainable. So this we need to achieve with the technologies we have, but let us stay focused. We already have the CP1 regulation, which is already there, that provides for a synchronization. Let us use the mechanisms we have, stay focused, show that it works, and maybe we can use the same model in the future for a synchronized deployment. So I would encourage all of us together to make CP1 deployment a success.
Thank you, Landina. Yes, it's quite clear. So I will close now this session. Thanks for attending. I know we are all starving, so I will be very short. So we see more of the transformative power of CNS system. They are the foundation of the ATM system, the aviation world, and this is key to ensure the safety of the operation. But we see also that CNS can enhance the system as well, at least can yield substantial benefits. So we need to prove benefits, and then people will get equipped with a bit of incentivization. Secondly, what I want to stress is that it's clear today, we need much more collaboration, or at least collaboration is key to move forward in all the domain. Technical, financial, we need to come to agreement. And then, sorry for that, Frederic, you will feel a bit more the pressure today, but we really need the CNS PM to help us. So I plead all of the community to join us and to help us to set up the CNS evolution plan so that we can build a bright future and enable TBO, because we all want some more efficiency into the system, some more sustainability. Thanks.
Actually, this is answering also the question about what do we mean about integrated CNS. You do need CNS thinking. So this is really important in order to success. And actually, without CNS, we don't need only to enhance the system, but to operate the system. Without CNS, we don't have aviation. So I think that was really an excellent panel. So I want really to thank Akim. I want to thank Veronique. I want to thank Jörg, Manuel, Anna, Greg, and Landina. So thank you very much for that one. But please don't go away yet. We are still having some time before the lunch. So what I would like is to have a few words about the technical program that is actually going to start later, and then I'll come up to close. So there is Rainer Kohl and Paul Pizazen, which are there, which are the technical chairs of the afternoon part. So, Paul.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks, Nikos. Thanks for the panelists, and a warm welcome to all of you, because the afternoon is basically your program. So we have about more than 145 papers and talks ahead of us. time is the thing that we have to fight today. So be integrated, try ICNS. There's a lot of CNS and ICE in the presentations this afternoon. The technical program starts sharp at 13:30. Please make sure that the speakers are there on time, obviously, because there will be audience. But do not hesitate to walk into those sessions where you want to be. We will swap at every 30 seconds. So if you jump from one room or the other one, it's basically just cruising up and down the corridor. The program for today, you will find it at the doors, but what is most important, I try to be in the way between lunch and the technical program, but in order to be there, eat quick, because aviation is about on-time performance, and we start sharp at 13:30. So enjoy lunch.
Thank you. Thank you, Rainer. Thank you, Paul. So maybe what we need to know is also that we are having an afternoon after the technical program. So maybe we can put the next slide. So what we're going to terminate now our live stream, but please note that after the technical program, we're going to have the reception for the exhibitors and the sponsor and the exhibitors reception. And also, most importantly, the best paper awards. So if you want to know what is the best paper of the conference, what is the best paper in the different tracks of the conference, what is the best student tracks, please make sure that you are here at 6 o'clock. There will be drinks, there will be some food actually to accompany the drinks. And we want also to congratulate the authors of the different papers. So I also want to say thank you to the people that have been following on the live stream. We will resume tomorrow at 9 o'clock on the live stream. So thank you very much. And for the ones on the live stream, see you tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Thank you.